Hey, I'm here. Hello, Wix people. Hi, if anyone is still here. Not sure if you are, but thank you for being here. Um, uh, I bet Prime would let debate more. Come on, debate more. I remember a person named debate more. Honestly, I forget. Like, this is not an insult to whoever that person is. I have a hard time remembering names and. So like if you're not in my life for a while, I forget. And it's like even people who were previously important, I have trouble forgetting their names. But I remember there was a person named Debate Boar. I don't remember how I felt about them. But maybe I'd let them on. I don't know. I don't remember who this person is. Let's see. Such the old Okay. Well, uh I tried searching my DMs and that the name didn't come up. So I don't know. I don't know. But okay. Yeah, I just really can't remember. Yeah, I haven't interacted with them for quite a long time. Anyway, we're gonna do the Reverie roundtable in just a moment. Stick around. We'll have fun. All right. Okay. He's a good arguer. You had him multiple times. He's conservative though. Good man. Vapor. Um, was the Vapor the one who wouldn't come on camera and because I don't know, we've had a few people. But like you wouldn't come on camera. Um, but he had like that really had a pretty calm voice. Um, I don't remember. Um, yeah, I know. I forget. I if it's the guy I'm thinking of, then I mean I would let him on to talk. Not on a panel because he doesn't use a camera. If it's the guy I'm thinking of. Yeah, calm voice. Yeah, Toby. Yeah, okay. Then it's the person I was thinking of. Yeah, I would have one, but he doesn't come on camera. And so the first time he came on camera. He doesn't want you to remember that, but that's the case. That first time he came on, he was on camera. But I would let him on. I'm not on a like a formal panel. But anyway, here we go. Uh,
And so the thing becomes, it's like, okay, well, if we have a state and I don't have a magic button to fucking dissolve the state, what ought the state do? First principle is they ought dissolve. Well, they're not gonna. Okay, well, what do we do in this situation? Is it good that SCOTUS is worried about, a corrupt legal system coming after them after they're no longer a lame duck president or whatever? And I don't know that
mhm.
that is necessarily good, but the flip side of that is like this decision has a lot of questions for me because of like it's very vaguely defined what is like an official duty, right? Like I haven't read the decision
Mhm.
yet. I haven't had time today. I've just read like SCOTUS blog on it and like a couple other people's opinions. I'm worried about that potential expansion of power because at the end of the day, I want less power. But what I don't
Mhm.
want is I don't want the next president going after the previous president or their potential competition with the full legal authority of the state, um, because of acts that they did last term in such a way that it cripples presidents from being able to do things that are good or are right. Especially when I consider things like, oh, I don't know, what if Trump, let's imagine hypothetically, Trump got rid of the FBI, right? Well, to me, that would be a good thing, right? Like to me, that would be a great thing if he opened up the market to more justice, and less like federal authority. But do I want Biden then being like he went after the FBI because they were investigating him, go to jail, and then there to be this like chilling effect that the president is incapable of making large liberty decisions because they're worried about going to prison? So like I'm far more interested in Lactoid's take, about this recent decision than I am about like the principle based of mine. But yeah, ultimately my principles ally
Mhm.
me
Uh,
with any reduction in power, but it needs
well, a
Be
great
done
sign is where
intelligently.
like Lactoid's taking a drink, like at the very start. So
And on that note, we should all, this is a special day for Lactoid. We should all wish him a happy Canada Day, because today is Canada Day.
happy Canada Day to
That's why he's drinking, I'm
I
sure.
don't know how the song goes. I'm sure there's a song, but I don't know.
I couldn't tell you either.
What is Canada Day? Is it like our 4th of July?
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly.
It's one of 2 days. It's one of 2 days where most Canadians aren't stopped by their authoritarian government from using fireworks. Canada Day and Victoria Day in most provinces are the only place that it's fucking legal to use any fireworks other than those 2 days in Canada. Canada is a fascist country. Changing my mind.
Okay. Anyway.
This panel, I'm going back to my prison cell, just so you know.
I'm joking, by the way.
One of the few times they let you
Obviously,
out.
obviously exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah, we're just waiting on one other person. Might have another person join us later on in the night, but we're waiting. Who was the last person?
I just think that's wild that like you guys aren't legally allowed to use any fireworks in a lot of provinces, except for those 2 fucking days. It's like, why are those days magically different? Like, fuck off.
Well, I agree. I'm not necessarily opposed. I mean, at the end of the day, I think fireworks are pretty stupid and environmentally unfriendly, but like, they have effects on like whatever.
No,
this is why we need to bring back the F slur, because like that's the first thing that popped in my mind. I want you to know that. Like, I know we're online, so I'm not going to say it, right? But I want you to know that like a 3-letter slur that begins with F is the first thing that came in my mind when you were like, obviously I oppose it because environmentally unsound. Like, dude, come on.
Good impression of me, typical. But yeah, just like I think bonfires are stupid. Yeah, I think fireworks are just like burning crap. I think it's stupid.
Wow.
Yeah, you're
Most
probably an
freedom
idiot.
thing I've ever heard.
What about like barbecue? Is that the whole forest was on fire.
You're not using the right mic.
Down to my state.
You're like using a mic. Like I think you're using your laptop microphone as opposed to your USB microphone.
This guy hates barbecue. Like that sounds terrible.
Well, you can have barbecue without a fire. I'm talking about like people that just like burn crap for the sake of burning.
How the fuck do you have a barbecue without fire?
Yeah, and don't say with pellets. That shit does not count as barbecue. That shit's pussy bullshit.
Okay. I'm talking about largely like bonfires and just people are just like throwing a bunch of crap and burning it. Like, yeah, you can have a barbecue with like propane
like
and all that stuff.
Maybe.
Okay. You can't have a barbecue. You know what? I'm just gonna go and hang myself now.
Yeah, whatever. I don't eat meat either because, like, yeah, it turns out I'm healthy.
Meat is both healthy and good for the environment. Stop.
Meat makes you happy. I got to study. What do you think about that, Corey?
Well, I don't really. Do you want to talk about neurotransmitters, Lactoid?
No, I want to talk about happiness, which is what meat gives you, statistically speaking.
It's true. Just like motorcycles, just like you can't have happiness and fun without those things. It only makes sense.
Thank you. So, what you're saying is I should continue to eat meat and continue to ride my motorcycle. Look, you want to talk about neurotransmitters? I get a lot of happy ones when I eat meat. What about that?
Happy ones.
Yeah. So
dopamine.
No, that's
serotonin.
Not I don't want to go down this road. I don't think you're in the right state of mind.
Why? Because of the meat eating? Like, how fucking carnist of you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm anti-carnist. Yes, anti-carnist. Absolutely.
Fucking dare you.
Wow. Okay.
So have you heard democracy is over?
Vegans really killed the mood. We get it.
Yeah. We're all on the verge of being assassinated by Trump on a personal level.
Well, yeah.
Well, hold on. I've heard on Twitter on good authority for the 8 trillionth time that Trump is a fascist and the country is ascending into fascism. I think this time they might be onto something. I don't know.
I just think it's funny that the ones that are saying that Trump's a fascist and this is going to enable these things are also the same ones going, hey, you know what Biden should do? He should drone strike Trump right now. And I'm like, do you see what the...
Well,
no.
Yeah, they're trying to use hyperbole in order to demonstrate how bad it is, but I don't think any of them read the fucking ruling or understand how, like...
I didn't even read the full ruling.
Or do they also don't understand how like law enforcement in the military work on a day-to-day basis? Because based off of their logic, there is like a certain amount of like legal whatever the fuck immunity that you can talk about when it comes to law enforcement in the military, and it's effectively transmitting like a large property of that to the presidency, which a lot of people already assumed was the case. It was just never stated specifically.
Look, if they're afraid of what the president can do, they'll be blown away by what the judiciary can do. I'm just saying.
Well,
The
for
problem with
that,
it
you would
for,
actually have
like,
to think about it for
actors
more than 10 seconds.
Tom?
that you can't differentiate based on motive. Like reading through the whole thing, when they're sending it to the lower courts have to decide each and every single thing, like each and every duty, whether or not that is an official duty or whether or not that's a personal duty. But if you go and make like a trade deal that benefits the president and like personally benefits him a lot, they're not able to separate that based on motive now, which I would think is the only way you can differentiate it.
So Tom, I
Are we
agree.
good?
That's
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. Sorry, go on.
I agree that for me, that's like the weakest part of the case, probably the part of the case that I disagree with the most. However, their rationale as posted in the document was like, well, if you get into intention, then you can effectively endlessly subpoena the president for all of his communications between like official partners, looking for crimes of intent when it comes to like him doing his official duties. So they were saying that it's like it would be like a perverse incentive to say that like intent alone can, show a crime.
Hold on. But isn't intent an important part of a factor in a crime, right? When we're doing
I
this,
was just about to say, we
like,
do
100%.
intent with so many things, and to argue the like slippery slope thing doesn't make all that much sense when intent isn't like that would apply to almost every like crime that involves intent.
it's like
now.
intent
Yeah,
motive
well,
something, right?
Hold on.
Not totally
I have
true.
real quick.
I want
Like to it. Hold on, like to it.
I wanted to. So, first of all, when it comes to presidents or other major governmental figures, the laws are a little bit different than they would be for anybody else.
Okay.
But also, like when we're talking about presidential immunity, going back for a very long time since the beginning, presidents have been immune to civil litigation. This case really just expands it to criminal litigation. Do you guys think the president should be open to civil litigation?
I don't.
Not while they're president, no, but afterwards, yes.
Well, hold on, but then that's like an insane statement because then the entire state of Iraq can just sue George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld personally
Wait, I'm not
for what
saying
they've
for
done. To
The president gets out of office, they're getting hit by 100 lawsuits a day.
Yeah.
Not for everything, yes, but I'm saying there should be some things, obviously, and that's what I'm like.
That is the dream, right? Like that is nice. Like God,
like what's an example?
Wouldn't it be nice to put all of those war criminals in prison for the fucking terror that they've committed?
Like
Absolutely,
same thing,
Scott.
using presidential position for personal issues, like same thing. Like if you go and like dick somebody over and make it to where they lose a bunch of money in a process, or like their business loses a bunch of money because you had a bad deal with them in the past, or
that's
like
all
whatever.
the time.
That's also not an official. That's also not an official act, by the way. Just to be clear.
No. Hold on. So the government, for instance, with the EPA, for the EPA, you could easily say that the president of the United States, he approved this legislation that fucked over my business, that ruined me. As a result, I'm going to do a civil suit against him because he bankrupted my business. Like the light bulb. Do you remember those like
fuck
shitty,
the APA?
Yeah, do you remember those shitty light bulbs a few years ago that like Sarah Palin took like a few $100,000 in order to shill like less efficient light bulbs?
The squiggly ones or whatever?
Yeah, well, so the point being that like that company could sue the president of the United States and say, even though a law was passed, I'm holding you personally civilly liable for fucking over my business.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry. Hold on.
So glad to hear cop in favor of sovereign immunity. I love it. Welcome, Connor.
Yeah.
No,
it was predictable, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this is bullshit, right? Like
watching Connor over the past 2 years has been amazing. I just want to say.
Well, first of all, if they could have done that, then If they could have done it, they would have done that already. Because before this ruling, right, apparently intent was on the table, like for everyone else. And they didn't do it, right? And you didn't have these avalanche of lawsuits against presidents when intent was on the table. Now you've taken intent off the table. And now we're in a different landscape than we were previously.
Well, so like, just so look at it.
Lactoid was saying hypothetically, if presidents were available for like civil liability, they've never been available for civil liability.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
they're taking intent off the table for what the lower courts can decide for whether
crime. Yeah, and so and by the way,
personal or official duty.
So hold on. There's a point here though, and like by the way, this is like the weakest part. Like I agree with this the least. However, when it comes to murder, you can still prove the crime of murder without having specific intent. When it comes to theft, you can still prove theft without having specific intent. So not having intent doesn't mean that you can no longer enforce the law. It just means that it makes investigation a little bit more difficult.
Yes, I was going to piggybacking off of that counterpoints. That's what I was going to say, is that like intent only matters when there's a guilty act, right? Like, so you need actus reus and mens rea, right? Like one or the other really isn't helping if the other doesn't
hold on
exist.
again. We're not talking about the crime itself. We're talking about differentiating.
No. Right. Let me.
Or personal.
Yeah. I'm not a statist though, so like my concept of justice is going to be based off of whether or not an act of aggression and property was damaged, right? I don't give a fuck if you like there cannot, as far as I'm concerned, from a law perspective, you cannot have a crime without a victim. Like, it is impossible to have a crime against oneself or a victimless crime. And so if there is no victim, right, like the intent doesn't really matter. But as far as I'm concerned as well, intent only matters in terms of likely, you know, I'm still on the cusp of this, but it likely only matters in terms of retribution, but not restitution. So again, I could accidentally damage your property and I'm responsible for damaging your property, whether or not I intended to do so or not. But if I intend to do so, then there's an argument that can be had from estoppel principle that I can demand retribution. I can demand justice before you can argue that you have rights again. No, it's not different.
It is just real quick. They're saying that the lower court.
It can't be different than me stating. I'm stating a philosophical principle. It can't be different.
That's fine. So the difference is that when it comes to the lower courts, whether or not they're able to differentiate based on intent, what they're saying is you can't say, hey, like, yes, making deals with another country is a part of official duty, unless there's an intent for some sort of personal gain. They can't make that sort of stipulation.
No, you wouldn't let. So no, like, let's say I'm Donald Trump.
I'm finished.
Yes, that is what Robert said in his decision, like in his writing. He said the lower courts cannot make these decisions based on intent, on whether or not it is personal or official.
You're comparing apples to oranges here. I gave a philosophical principle about what a crime is, and then you're saying this is different. I agree.
Correcting the initial question.
Okay, well then, so you're correcting the question, even though I didn't ask one.
Okay,
regardless, what I'm saying is, like, intent, as far as I'm concerned, intent doesn't matter in an actual crime. So, for example, other than retribution, it doesn't matter about whether or not a crime committed in restitution. So let's say, right, Donald Trump, let's get rid of the crime but keep the intent. Let's say Donald Trump does some form of trade deal with China, right? That positively affects his businesses, right? He ought to do that trade. He ought, even if, and he's intended fully, and he even comes out on this podium and says, I did this, and the primary reason I did this is because it's going to make me a lot of fucking money. Right, and I don't give a fuck about the rest of you. That should be perfectly reasonable. Amen. It is perfectly reasonable for him to do that. Amen. If that trade deal is just free trade and isn't a crime and is doing nothing other than lessening some crimes that existed, right? It doesn't matter that the reason that he did it was for him to get filthy fucking rich. Greed is good. Greed is great. It is the highest moral aspiration of man.
Okay. I'd like to avoid that. Hold on, like, I just don't want to go down that route. All right, so
it's impossible to do something on behalf of Americans. 350 million people don't agree on fucking anything.
Whatever.
Also, greed is amazing, by the way.
But I don't. And noted. But I'd rather like focus more on this case and the American justice system as it was and as it is today.
Well, I am. That's why I'm discussing intent and the concept of intent as it applies to actual criminality.
I can bring up a specific example for Tom, and it will help his case, and simultaneously it will be the reason why the court said it ultimately doesn't matter, as far as I understand it. Okay, so the specific example that everybody is thinking about is Trump's conversation with the vice president, pressuring him in order to avoid the electors.
Well, that's
and then the second one was when he was talking to, I think it was like the attorney general or something like that. And he was also trying to pressure the attorney general to do something that the attorney general thought was against his, discretion or ability to do so. And so what the court said is that because he's having these conversations within the official capacity of president, and on top of that, it's concerning a presidential matter that is of concern to the president, regardless of whether or not he made a bad decision or whatever, he has a level of immunity there. However, when he steps outside of his remit, and this is something that is mentioned in the case as well, when he is trying to bully state level officials in order to pursue an electoral agenda that is completely outside of his scope, that is going to be up to the courts to determine whether or not he was acting in his unofficial or official capacity. And right there, you already have the case against Trump that he was not acting in his official capacity to investigate the state level election fraud or whatever, because one, the states had already told him to fuck off, and two, he was bringing like undue pressure onto them after they had already said, we have cleared this investigation, you are outside of your bounds. So at that point, you can still run forward with the prosecution.
Yeah, the argument that bringing like separate electorates, it doesn't, there's no way you can argue that that's within his official duty, because it just has nothing to do with his job whatsoever.
But I think the Supreme Court was saying that it's okay for him to be a stupid asshole in his position and he will still have some level of immunity. So even like the state electors thing, when he was pressuring Vice President Biden or when he was pressuring the Attorney General, they were saying that those would still be official acts that would have absolute immunity, if I read it correct. I'm happy to be corrected.
So what again, I have not read the full thing. I know, crazy. Just got off work, sorry. But from what I have read, this is just how it goes. There is basically three levels, right? There is things that are core to the constitutional role of the president, and those are absolutely immune. There's things that are on the peripheral of what the president's supposed to do, and those are presumed to be immune, but evidence can come out that they're not immune. And then things that are done clearly not in the official capacity of president are not immune. And what the Supreme Court decided was that the conversations with the DOJ to direct investigation on the alleged voter fraud, this was an official act, right? Because the president has a right to enforce the law, right? The federal law, and there are federal laws against election fraud. So when you talk with the DOJ to direct them to go investigate this, this is an official act. This is for sure immune. When it comes to discussing with Vice President Pence, it's a little bit more on the line. It's a little bit more confusing whether or not that was actually an official act or not. And the Supreme Court basically says, look, lower court, you have to look into this and find out if was it an official act or not. And I think that's pretty humble, actually, of the Supreme Court. You know, people talk a lot about how, this give the president so much power. But the thing to remember is that, this is the Supreme Court deciding what the limits of power are for the president. I think that implies that the Supreme Court really is like the most powerful branch here.
They've been the most powerful since Marbury Madison.
Since the beginning.
Yeah. Well, definitely that's true. Here's the problem that I've
since a Warren court,
right? And so my understanding of this may be incorrect, but this is what I've heard multiple times from people who understand this better than I do, is that they didn't actually set a test for what's official. That like you're setting up these levels.
They provided guidance.
But
they provided some guidance.
But there was no real test to be able to apply to this. So, like, what is this guidance you're talking about? Because everyone I've heard says like there is none of that, or this very
right. The first they do give some examples, right? They talk about how the direction of the DOJ was absolutely immune based on the fact that it's a direct communication between the president to the DOJ to go do something the president has the authority to do constitutionally, right? Constitutionally, the president has the right to enforce our laws. Now, it's going to be up to every lower court,
but
really.
That's not guidance. But that's not a test, right? That's
but it's guidance. It's guidance in the sense that now lower courts know, well, we're going to look at whatever the president did. We're going to look through the historical record. We're going to look at the Constitution. We're going to look at what does the Constitution give presidents the right to do? And if it gives presidents the right to do something, then it's probably an official act, right? Well, if it's like the facts kind of don't show that they were doing something that the Constitution lets them do, then it might not be an official act, right? And then the Supreme Court's going to check the work of any of the lower courts.
Well, and here's an example that I think can kind of bring this to bear, even if you don't like the example historically. Like I know conservatives are not necessarily going to like this example. So falsifying business records in order to make a payment for a non-disclosure agreement, in the furtherance of an election or whatever. There is almost no argument that I can think of in which President Trump can say this is an official act of the president.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, it doesn't further his presidency. It doesn't further the security of the United States. It doesn't further his responsibilities under Article 2. It doesn't further, any of his emergency powers under the Emergencies Act, which a lot of people were bringing up because they were like, well, why can't he just like declare an emergency and then he can do whatever the fuck he wants? And it's like, no, the Emergencies Act is actually pretty specific, weirdly enough. So the point being that like these things are not as random as people think they are. And I can again think of no official act clause that would cover paying off a pornographic actress.
Wait, hold on. Why would you think?
Feels like you just shoehorned that example in.
Why would
you?
Hold on.
It's very specific.
Why would you?
It's very specific.
Why would you think conservatives?
I didn't say it was unspecific. It was just shoehorned in.
Hold on. Why would you think conservatives have a problem with anything you just said?
Just because I know some people
They
like
don't.
to say that
They don't.
Well,
Maybe
no,
the
hold on.
populists do. Maybe the
Let me tell you
populists
why.
do.
You asked me a question. I want to answer. A lot of conservatives don't think that case should have been brought in the first place.
Okay, that may be true. That's for different reasons. Like
exactly.
Yeah. Like
that case is bullshit, but not for the I agree with you. It's obviously that wouldn't be a case of immunity.
He brought in a shoehorn case because he's an anti-Trumper, and it's just funny. You're transparent,
and I can explain. I can explain why that case is complete bullshit.
It was just an extreme example of Trump having personal shit that's not related to the presidency.
By the way, I do actually think to give Connor some credit. I do think that case is like perhaps, and I don't know this. This is me speculating out of my fucking ass. I think that case, because of how ridiculous it was, is like perhaps motivated the court here of realizing, oh shit, like this could become an issue, right? Historically, this has been a civil thing, right? Because we don't want the president sued because it causes all these issues. But of course, we can rely on the norms that people aren't going to be bringing criminal cases against presidents. And then they do. Oh shit, I guess we have to look at this and actually make a rule.
Okay, so first of all, we should be taking being criminal cases against the president. Absolutely, the president shouldn't have complete sovereign immunity. That is like we want presidents to be scared to use their power. We want the powerful to always be cautious when using their power. Right? Like,
wow, that sounds like something I would say.
Trump will be your emperor, Prime.
I would think that Lactoid, you would agree with me on this one. And Scott, I think, already does. I think that's what he alluded to previously. We want them always to be cautious when using their power, right? And to have damn good reason every time they do it. So I mean, like that should be from the jump. My problem is, of course, I'm not a legal expert, so like I was trying to get someone else in here to talk about this as well, but it looks like I'm not sure.
You need a woman to talk about this.
Let me be clear. So my legal opinion and my personal, like what I think politics should be, are two different things, right? Okay. Like legally speaking, income tax is constitutional. Why? There is a specific fucking amendment that they passed to make it constitutional. There's no argument. Right? The government does legally have the right to tax people. I think it's theft personally. Morally, I think it's wrong. But any kind of honest legal analysis that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
No, there is a specific constitutional amendment that allows for income tax.
No, but you're talking about the faux legality of the United States government. That's
Sure.
Actual legality.
I have to share something personal, okay? You brought it up. I have to share something personal. I was thinking to myself today, electoral politics is so toxic, so shitty, so terrible. I'm out. I'm done. I'm going to go be a libertarian Republican. I'm going to fuck off. Don't tax me. Leave me alone. Or don't tax me too much. Leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone, right? That's what I was thinking my politics were going to be. I would like to thank Lactoid for saying something so fucking patently insane. I cannot identify with the fucking label libertarian. So
what? Whoa! I said something very sane. I said legally. I didn't even reject all of America, like somebody in the panel just did. I'm saying that, like, within America, yes, legally, you can tax income. Personally, morally, I think it's wrong. Okay, this is an example of two different hats, right? I approach things from a legal perspective, and I approach things from a personal moral perspective.
But if I had to go to a convention with you and fucking Fabian Liberty, I would kill myself in the parking lot. Okay.
Wait,
so,
I would be the one. I would be.
What it is.
Hold on, pause.
I would be the one supporting driver's licenses. Okay.
Pause, just real quick. Instead, he likes to hang out with Progressive Victory and get paid by leftists to try and make the DNC.
Well, if you offered
those
me,
are the people you prefer to hang out with.
Offered me money, maybe
a bunch
I'd
of
hang
Marxists.
out with you.
Well, would you kill yourself
you're up
after
for
the
sale.
question
You don't have any
at
fucking principles. That's why you can't be a libertarian because
I
libertarianism
got
requires
plenty of
principles.
principles.
Hold on,
Yeah,
wait,
money.
don't you have it? Wait, hold on. Just to play devil's advocate here, what's more capitalist than getting paid? I don't understand what the problem is.
Free association.
He is siphoning money from the Democrats right now. That's what he's doing. He is helping our cause.
Yeah.
Actually, hold on. I'll share with you guys a better conspiracy theory, which is that Progressive Victory.
It's not conspiracy theory. You openly admitted it.
Okay, so hold on. Is that Peter Thiel is actually paying for Progressive Victory in order to make all the online lefty loons do online lefty loon things in public?
Okay. Peter Thiel
Sure.
on everything.
Hey, every dollar you take is one less dollar they're spending on ads. Do it.
And one more dollar for a bolter.
Yeah, absolutely. Win-win.
Okay.
I'm sure that was your motivation.
So,
partially.
And Lactoid, you're probably not in a position to talk about this yet because you just haven't had the time to look at it. But
is what it is, right? The most crazy fucking case of 2024 drops, and I'm working. Oh my god, capitalism! Right?
And on Canada Day too. Should be a day off.
Everything is capitalism's fault.
But Lactoid. So what I also understood that even Amy Coney Barrett said in her concurring opinion is that this ruling basically takes away the ability to ask questions and seek the evidence for to find out if something's official, right? So if something is identified as official that you can't necessarily ask, but you can't investigate it because it's official, it has that absolute immunity. And then but if it's not actually official, if it only appears to be on the surface, but we'd have to dig deeper. We couldn't actually do that. What do you think?
I don't know if that's true, right? Based on the majority opinion that I read, most of it does. I think there was a specific part in which Roberts specifies that the right of the investigatory element of this is not the same as being actually convicted or being charged or being gone after in a criminal manner. That being able to investigate somebody to see if it was an official act is critical, because if it's an unofficial act, they can be charged, right? And if it's an official act, they can't. So you're obviously going to have to do some kind of investigation there to find out which one's which.
And the differentiation that he already articulated once before, I think is really pertinent, which is effectively if it's a constitutional duty, something that is articulated in Article 2 of the Constitution, then he has absolute immunity. But if it's something that's on the periphery, because there's a shitload of things that the executive branch does now that are not specified in Article 2, then it's presumed immunity. So for instance, let's say, let's kick it back to who is it? Obama, drone striking Anwar al-Awlaki or something like that.
Yeah, he should have been prosecuted for that. But go ahead.
Well, okay, so he has presumed criminal immunity because he can say that, he was a member of ISIS and he was hanging out with these other guys who were doing this, that, the other, et cetera, et cetera. But if there was a particularly aggressive federal prosecutor who wanted to say, no, you stepped outside the bounds of your duty, I'm going to show that this was not pursuant to your actual responsibilities as commander-in-chief, they could argue that.
Here's a good example, Prime. Do you think that, let's say Congress passes a law that is later deemed, let's say it's later deemed to be unconstitutional. Do you think those people who voted for that law, should they be held personally, criminally responsible for voting for an illegal law?
No, I wouldn't say that. But I would say if the president, under an official duty, like what our friend Counterpoints bought in, decided that he wanted to use military power against either a political enemy or just do it outside the bounds of like whatever our law allows, right? That he should face criminal prosecution.
Okay, wait. Let me be more clear. Let's say Congress all votes on a law that, I don't know, enacts some level of violence that is unconstitutional. Should the people who have that violence enacted upon them be able to go to the government and press charges against the congressmen who voted for that law? Drug war, for example. Should the senators and the House of Representatives, who, by the way, I think the drug war is unconstitutional, and maybe some Supreme Court somewhere will have the sense to wake up and rule such. But should those Congress people who voted for it, should they be held criminally responsible?
No, I wouldn't say so, but like, and I hear the distinction you're trying to make here. I'll have to put some thought into it, right? To see exactly where I fall in this.
Fair answer.
It seems like though, passing a law and like, I'm talking the example I gave you falls outside of this completely, right? At least maybe, right?
It's close.
Things are very complicated, right? So I'll say that. But if the president decides to assassinate a political rival, right? Let's assume that Congress didn't pass a law that says that, hey, you can assassinate your political rival. This specific person can kill Hillary Clinton, right? Let's assume that didn't happen. But if he decides to do that, whether Biden or Trump, they should be criminally prosecuted, right? Right? Like, even though they have the ability to use the military.
Could be. I think under the current statute.
I think the funny thing, the funny reason you bring this up is because of the recent Chevron decision. What Congress would do is just make super vague laws, pass the buck to the executive, and then the executive would just constantly be in court because of the Chevron decision about whether or not they should or shouldn't be doing these things. Like it was just the problem doesn't initially lie. So the problem is that we're engaged in a contradiction philosophically, and the contradiction is that you give the state authority to commit acts that are criminal and aggressive, such as taxation, which is theft, or such as murder of other people, which they call war, and they just kind of bring up bullshit justifications for it, or they don't call it a war, so the Congress doesn't even have to do anything. You give them the authority to do all of these things, which are aggressive. They are criminal. And because they have this justification, there is then this, well, what we'll do to try and rein this in from getting too far is that we will, we'll have these checks and balances that are in place so that like when one is bad, etc. And now that problem rears its head when one branch wants to go after, or one, administration wants to go after their political rivals in some capacity, is that now you're forced into recognizing this contradiction and having to grant immunity. Because it should be that if a president does and makes decisions that kill people, that killing was an aggressive act, right? Just to give, an example that you were using previously with Alawaki, right? That it should be that you're criminally liable. The problem is that we've given the state the authority to do extrajudicial murder of American citizens overseas, and then we don't, and so there comes this contradiction, and that's why that is why immunity has to be granted, is because the state is doing criminal acts daily against its citizens.
Well, not even just that, but I think the best argument from Trump's team was that the president needs immunity because he needs to be able to act like very quickly and sternly and with confidence, and not have to worry about whether or not he's in some gray area and whether or not he might get charged with some crime at the end of the day. But I feel like I've heard you say numerous times that you felt like Bush should have been charged with crimes for what it was that he did with the Iraq war, and that he was doing things for personal gain and going to war for that. So how do you square that with this decision, and how you feel about this? Because obviously,
I think you should be pissed.
He squares it easily.
Obviously,
you think this should happen? How do you square this to how you think this should happen?
How do you square the
No,
consistency,
Lactoid
Prime?
just-
Well-
wait. Yes, no. I'm saying like Lactoid just like got it to where like yeah, it sounded like Prime kind of agrees with this and kind of like feels like this makes sense to an extent. And so yeah, I'm asking like if you feel like there was something criminally done there, do you feel like that causes a problem with this decision to where you wouldn't want this?
Well,
Because
this is a
something
continue.
like
Hold on,
this
before
can
he
happen
goes, this
again?
is an escalation of the Bush Doctrine, right? Like under the Cheney Doctrine and all that. This is an escalation of the what do they call it? The theory of the unitary executive. This is just a further extension down the line. So, like, if you agree with this, then everything Bush and Cheney did is totally fine.
Okay,
Like that's
right.
not even debatable.
Yeah,
but like
I
as
don't. I don't
But
agree with
well,
this
hold
at
on.
all,
But yeah, but just to finish it real quick, with what whatever Scott was saying, I don't necessarily agree with that. But I would argue that here's the issue: is we do live in the real world, right? We have three different branches. They all have individual things, right? So when you were giving this example earlier, Prime, I don't know that that's a fair example to say, oh, if the president assassinates somebody or uses, because the president is the military leader. He's the commander in chief. That's a power delegated to him by the Constitution, right? That's the exact equivalent to any law that's created by Congress. So you could pick, like, say, chewing bubble gum, and it is illegal, and they ban it, and all of a sudden now, if someone comes and says, hey, that's now unconstitutional, that would be the same equivalent to him going, drone strike Bob Saget, right? Like, it doesn't matter because those are both in their own purview. Yeah, what
Okay.
you get the point. I think.
Arguably, he could not. It would not be an official act to drone bomb Bob Saget. I don't think that would.
Yeah.
Be.
Sure, but the point is that they're in their purviews, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, so hold on.
There's different
What
powers.
if he was on the
Arguably
Epstein
not.
flight logs? Hold on. What if he was on the Epstein flight logs?
Questions asked.
Okay, hold on. Lactoid. So I'm again working my way
Bob
through
Saget's
this.
dead, obviously.
Working his way through this question, right? That you've given me, and I think it would be okay. So if Congress passed a bill, they passed a law, that said like wipe out the state of Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Like, so or had the effect, right? Like maybe not the intent, but the effect that Massachusetts be wiped out. Should Congress be prosecuted? I'm still not sure on that. I think it's a step away by like a group collectively passing this law, right? But I think there's a case to be made there. However, the president, for executing that law, should definitely be prosecuted.
No,
Right?
no. Well, hold on. Wait. Let's take. I can give you an example, and then I can give you a real world example. So, an example that I know you won't agree with. Really, up until like 2003, with Lawrence versus Texas, there's places in the United States where gay sex was illegal. Right in Texas, it was illegal to have gay sex. Let's say it was illegal to have. I don't know. There was like some constitutional amendment passed criminalizing gay sex, and then Congress voted to legalize gay sex, but not by constitutional amendment. Should everyone who voted for that law be open to be criminally charged for violating the ultimate law of the land?
It's not about. So the example I gave is not about violating the law of the...
They're subverting the ultimate law of the land.
What's the ultimate law of the land? Sorry.
The Constitution.
Okay.
This is the thing, right? What the Supreme Court's concerned about is undermining one branch cleverly by putting limits on their power in a way that subverts the Constitution. This happened, and the Supreme Court mentions this in the decision. Following the Civil War, the president, I forget who exactly it was, put forward to pardon everybody who was involved in the Civil War, in the Confederate side, if they swore allegiance to the Union. Congress, which was controlled by radical Republicans at the time, didn't like this. They, fuck these traitors. So then they passed a law basically saying, no, the president doesn't get to pardon these people. Fuck them. They are traitors and they will always be traitors. And the Supreme Court looked at it and said, no, you don't get to pass a law that undermines one of the foundational parts of the presidential power granted by the Constitution, which is the pardon power. Now explain to me how, if the pardon power has been historically deemed to be outside of the reach of Congress, how does the person who grants pardons, how are they personally criminally liable for official acts? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why we have to shack this away from my example. If the president executed a law that resulted in the wiping out of Massachusetts, right? Then you're saying the president shouldn't be held legally responsible for that.
If it was within an official act designated by the Constitution, no.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So like, why don't you just actually look? So like, I see this happen all the time where we just like keep abstracting away from like the actual problem. But if you actually look at that actual problem, I'm talking about, hey, like, yeah, what if we just did a little Israeli genocide, you know, like here on
it's filled with zombies.
Right?
What do you want?
If we did that, hold on. Excuse me.
I want to know in your example.
Excuse me. Hold on. You're gonna wait till I finish talking, and then you can ask me. I'll be happy to listen to you. But like, if we're talking about literal genocide, right? I gave you an example of that, and you say that like, well, no, I guess if it's a part of the official duties, you know, the genocidal duties, well, of course he shouldn't be prosecuted. See, that's where you lose me completely. Then I don't have to listen to the rest of it. Because this is the heart of the problem. When they're using state power, they should be afraid.
Should the president have been found guilty for nuking Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Probably.
Yes, probably.
He had been criminally prosecuted.
Hold on. Have you not heard me argue against this?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Absolutely. Holy shit! It didn't. That did not need to happen, right? It was completely unnecessary.
What about the Battle of Mogadishu? The Battle of Mogadishu.
I don't know anything about the Battle of Mogadishu.
So I mean, but hold on.
Black Hawk Down.
I got some questions I want to answer. Hold on. So in your own example, is the legislative branch going to get tried as well, or just the president for wiping out Massachusetts?
Yeah, who the fuck wants to be president after this?
Hold on, yeah. So it's
I mean, like, if people are going to be scared,
not someone from Massachusetts.
No,
but hold on, because I have two parts to this. I have two parts. I want this answer. Is the legislative branch getting charged with crimes as well, or just the president?
Sure. That's what the part at the very start I said. I wasn't sure, like, if we should take that step. But I'd be open to it. I said, like, I'd be open to arguments of like prosecuting.
Counterpoints you brought up zombies. Which is an equivalent. What if they were all infected with smallpox or some other infectious disease, and we had to quarantine them, and they were going to essentially die? And so you are wiping out the state now. Are you going to still charge the president with crimes if he's saving the rest of the United States from an infectious disease or like a bio attack that's happened in Massachusetts? And by cutting them off, they're essentially going to die. Well,
you're pro quarantine now?
I'm just asking. I'm asking him.
Well, so hold on. So no, what Gibbs is poking at that I think is like the fundamental to officials is good faith doctrine, which is basically like, are you acting in your capacity, trying to discharge your duties to the best of your ability with the information you have at the time? And if the answer is yes, you should have some level of immunity. And the reason why is because it's actually relatively easy to come on here with Twitch and YouTube poll and just talk shit endlessly about fucking geopolitical events that actually kill people every single day. Actually being the person who's choosing who lives and who dies is an infinitely more difficult position. So, and those decisions, on top of that, those decisions have to be made because inaction is also a form of action.
Well, and that's exactly my point. Like, I didn't agree with the quarantine at all nationwide, right? But I'm not sitting here advocating that we should go and try Biden for the quarantine, right? We shouldn't go put him on trial for these evil acts that he committed with the quarantine, right? But like in your own scenario, what's the difference?
What about suicides caused by quarantine?
I'll try to address that. But first of all, when
I think we should.
When it comes to what Scott said, this is like the canard they do all the time, right? It's like, oh well, there's going to be a moment where the president needs to make a decision, and then he's just going to be too scared to make the decision, and nothing, and awful this is going to happen. But I don't. I think that if in that time the president can't go through the steps to make sure, hey, the thing I'm going to do is legal, right? Then
maybe they shouldn't do it.
Then they shouldn't fucking do it, right? If they're not actually going to do that step. So I hear you on that the good faith, right? Like the best information at the time, but like that's already in law, right? Like if a person believes
it's called immunity.
That they weren't doing a crime, and didn't have the intent of doing this crime, if they didn't set out to cause harm, like we factor this in all the time.
Nuking Hiroshima was legal.
Can I ask you a question, Lactoid? So taking your example of Congress passing a law that is unconstitutional, how would you feel in this real world example, right? For everyone not and judge, after Texas v. Johnson, Congress then passed the Flagged Act of 1989, right? And that resulted in, after the Supreme Court already clearly stated in Texas v. Johnson that flag burning was constitutionally protected free speech, Congress then intentionally went against the Supreme Court's ruling to create a new law after the fact that constitutionally they knew was unconstitutional. They knew that there was already a ruling, and thus we had to rehash it with United States v. Ekman, which I think is the last flag burning Supreme Court case. I don't think there's been one since then.
There was three
one in
major
New York.
ones.
Right, but they detailed like other things beyond just whether or not flag burning is. So like, would you say that Congress members of that time that intentionally passed a law that they knew was unconstitutional, and there's no argument that they couldn't because they passed it after Texas v. Johnson with the specifics of trying to criminally prosecute people who were doing a constitutionally protected act, according to Texas v. Johnson, should be in some way prosecuted because they intentionally put forward a law that they knew was unconstitutional, and there's no argument that they couldn't have known because they did it in response to Texas v. Johnson.
No, and that's because constitutionally Congress is immune. That's it. Right?
I'm just curious. So
when the Constitution says they are immune for doing this, they're immune. So the line would be if it's an official act of Congress, they are personally criminally immune. That's it.
Right, but I'm not giving you a question of constitutional scholarship here, right? I'm asking ought.
Okay, well, so this is important, right? Because let me explain a little bit, right? Ultimately, these nations are invented. We just invent these lines in the sand, and we invent these flags that we put up. Ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, these are just like currency and governments. These are just things that we invent, and we put a certain level of faith in. Now, I recognize the United States as a power, and I recognize its authority over the land in which I live. And obviously, to some extent, I mean, I've sworn an oath to the Constitution. So I recognize the authority of the Constitution to some extent. The Constitution often conflicts with my personal morality. On a personal level, a lot of what the government does is immoral. And I advocate for change through legal means to get the government to align more to what I want, which is less taxation, less regulation, less enforcement of bullshit laws, ending the drug war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
But like all of that being said, because my personal desires are there, that doesn't nullify my academic analysis of what is. And the law is a certain way, whether I like it or not. And the way I see the law is,
I'm saying, like, let's say there's a law in Congress today, and would you call your congressman to support, or would you not? Said law, let's say Thomas Massey or some, Rand Paul or somebody puts one that says, if it can be shown that they are intentionally creating a law that they knowingly violates the Constitution, that they should be punished in some regard, like censored, or pulled off of committees, or something in that regard.
Yeah. If we can punish people through like discretionary means that people have a way to do so anyway, that's fine. That's different though than criminally prosecuting somebody, right? Because criminally prosecuting not only requires that I first of all want it. I guess there's an element of I think it should be a crime, but then there's also, is it a crime? And if Congress votes for something that I think is unconstitutional and it's not a crime, you might say, Scott, well, let's throw them in jail. And I might personally agree, fuck those motherfuckers. But it's a breakdown of the system if we actually do that, because the law doesn't say that.
One step further. So one step further, just to find out exactly where your line is. One step further. Let's change that thing to, it's not criminal prosecution, right? But if someone is knowingly creating an unconstitutional law and you can show intent, would you accept a ruling or a law that makes them civilly liable for the cost of court for those people that have to then take their case to the courts to overturn that knowingly unconstitutional thing, right? They had to go to an appellate court, they had to go to Supreme Court, they had to pay money for lawyers, right? Like let's say it was like Masterwork Cake Shop or something, right? And people knew that because he's been to court like 70 fucking times, right? And people keep passing laws to try and take that guy back to court again at the state level or at the federal level. Would you then say that they, Nancy Pelosi or, pick a name you don't like or one that you do like, ought be civilly liable in some regard for doing it if it could be shown through some public thing that allowed at a judge's discretion to then give you discovery, and then in discovery we found more evidence, right? Like obviously there'd be some standard that you wouldn't just accept every case.
Sure.
But if like there was a public statement, it's like, I don't care that it's unconstitutional, this person's a bigot, right? And it's like, that's enough for discovery for more things, right? Could they be held civilly liable for that?
There would need to be a constitutional amendment, and I would support it. But there would need to be but just a regular statute, I wouldn't support that, because if a statute comes into conflict with the Constitution, and the Constitution says these people are immune, and the Constitution takes precedence, right? And I think stability is a virtue to some extent. I'm not willing to abandon the level of stability that we have in this country. I think that incremental change is superior to revolutionary change, and my interest in reform.
I agree with that point. Is that specific point, right? Because the name's Fabian for a reason. I'm an incrementalist, but
exactly right. But I think that respecting the Constitution is the foundational part of that, and the only way to respect the Constitution is to grant it legitimacy. You might wipe your ass with it, but the Constitution is the law.
Incrementally wipe it.
Incrementally. And statutes are under the Constitution, and I like the Constitution. I think that not only is it just legally, obviously, the ultimate law of the land, so I can defend it from a originalist perspective, but from just a libertarian, there's some good shit in there, right? Guns and free speech, not bad, pretty good shit. I'm glad they put that in there.
The way I view the Constitution is very simply, or metaphorically, I should say, but it's a simple metaphor, is kind of like an older brother, right? Yeah. I look at the Constitution kind of like an older brother that's a fuck up. You have to give your older brother the respect that he protected you from bullies at school. And you have to give your older brother the respect that like he was there for you when you were growing up. But as you get older and you realize that your older brother is a loser and fundamentally he's not going to be able to take care of your parents, at a certain point you have to be able to take up the mantle and recognize that it's up to you to be able to care and provide for the family. I give the Constitution some level of respect that at its time it certainly enshrined a concept of rights and freedom and individual liberty, and that as a document it has done a lot, especially as we've transitioned from monarchies to liberal democracies, some of that good, some of that bad. But at the end of the day, it doesn't go far enough, and at the end of the day, it doesn't actually enshrine individual liberty. It just sprinkles those ideas in.
I would agree to expand it, but I'm sorry, if the Constitution wasn't there, these motherfuckers would eat you. They would eat me.
That's what I just said.
They would
the
kill
older brother
us
protected
now.
You from the bullies.
It's not just in the past. It's not just in the past.
Fun.
They would kill us now. They would come after our shit. They would pass ridiculous laws. They would take away our guns. They would take away our freedom of speech. They would kill us, right? This is the one document that's keeping this whole fucking country together. And I think that it's critically important that it's
silly.
It's not silly. Look, you brought up the fucking case
in which you pulled up. You brought up. You
brought up
doom if it was.
Let's base it off of past cases. You brought up multiple cases in which flag desecration was struck down by the Supreme Court. Currently, at least according to the most recent Pew research I've been able to find, the majority of Americans support banning burning the flag. Majority. If this was up to the political realm, it would be illegal for you to do what you want with your own property to express a political image.
I didn't fucking state that we should have an absolute democracy. Like, cool, I agree.
Okay, I understand. Like all things, you want this to be better, but it's not. Okay, and I recognize that, and I want it to be better too. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. That doesn't mean we don't wipe our ass with it. Like this is something that we should respect, and we should hope to expand.
I just told you exactly how I respect it. That I clarified and said I look at it like a fuck up older brother. And
do you wipe your ass with your older brother?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes you wipe your ass with your older brother. Okay, all right.
Older brothers get into some degenerate shit. Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, all right.
I'm kidding. I'm an only child, but you get the metaphor.
It's someone else's older brother, apparently.
Yeah.
No, I pick my friends' noses. You know what I mean?
Go ahead, counterpoints, if you want to go.
No, I was just gonna say, trying to drag this back. I think that one of the things that I've heard consistently throughout today, and that I really agree with, is the reason why people are so freaked out is because of specifically Trump. I think that if this was a ruling in the abstract and we were just talking about like how should the divisions of powers exist between the executive branch and the legislative, and what level of immunity are we granting him and all that kind of stuff. If this was Mitt Romney as president or Obama as president, there might be some conspiracy theories or some shit, but it would all be dismissed ultimately. Whereas the reason why everybody's freaking the fuck out is because they're specifically thinking, what is the worst thing that Trump could do under the color of law and try to get away with it? And that's what they're fantasizing about today.
Yeah, and I agree, but that's
I agree. Trump derangement syndrome's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, agreed.
That's Trump cope syndrome,
and that's a problem. Because we shouldn't just be thinking about like what's the worst thing imaginable. I think we should be thinking about a lot of mundane things that can happen, things that can happen under secrecy that any president can do or can be tempted to do. That like our imagination is stunted if we're just thinking about like the worst boogeyman, right? But not all the other violations that happens to people like by the state. But we don't actually do that. We don't actually engage with these topics, these discussions. And instead, it's just in an apocalyptic scenario without like thinking about like, okay, well, if he's the president and under official duties, he does something that immiserates a large portion of the population, or I don't know, does something like clearly criminal, but like because we can't properly investigate him because it's under official, then he just gets away with it. Like there's all kinds of ways that this can turn bad. I'm forcefully saying that I agree with you.
No, this is the point that I am most sympathetic to, because by the way, I think my personal understanding of history is that Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld wanted to depose Saddam in 1991 or 92. They weren't able to. They went into the private sector. They created a nation-building company. Then in the early thousands, when they became a part of the administration under Bush Jr., they pushed for war with Iraq. They fluffed, at minimum, exaggerated what was going on with Iraq in order to make the case for war. And then they used that, and that killed hundreds of thousands of people and enriched their former Gulf buddies. That is like, even if that's not criminal, that is some of the most ethically dubious, fucked up shit I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. And the truth is that these people will never be held accountable. So on one hand, I'm saying
10% of what Henry Kissinger did.
Yeah, right.
Sure. Well, sure. And then, but I hate communists more than I hate corporate douchebags. So
Henry Kissinger helped communists.
Well, okay. Anyways, so the point being that like
brought China into the market.
Come on. When you're kind of bringing up your concerns, it's like you're like, oh, okay, so you're letting people get away with evil because you think that it's necessary to perpetuate the system. And unfortunately, my answer to you is yes.
To me? To who?
Yeah.
Okay. So
well, yeah. If you're asking in a hypothetical, like, well, it just sounds like we're letting evil people get away with evil shit, then the answer to that statement is kind of like, yeah, we are.
Okay,
well, that's what I said.
We can't think of a better way to do it.
Like, is that there's a contradiction that occurs when you give the state the authority to do evil, right? You can't then give them this authority and then say, we give you the authority to do all the evil things and your existence is evil, but then we're going to criminally prosecute you afterwards. It doesn't work, right? So if you're going to give them the authority to do evil, you give them the immunity from said authority to do evil.
Well, and then this kind of gets into the moral systems. Sorry, real quick, Gibbs, just because I think this is like fundamental difference between Fabian and I. It's like, I think it's because I believe in necessary evil.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, no. I mean, I think
necessary evil is evil.
I mean, Yeah, but he's hitting the nail on the head here with that argument, though, right? Like, there's just certain things that, like, one person's going to perceive as evil, another one's not. Like, you're going to have these branches fighting, and this is just another case of that, right? Like, we can even look at the Herb report, right? Where everybody's sitting here wanting to see the audio tapes, we want to see the videotapes. They don't want just the transcript, and people are we're using executive immunity to stop them from seeing that, right? So there's all these different levels to this, right? When you go, but the minute we start going and taking too much power from any one of these branches, it's going to start to stop to cease as a functional government, and so you have to allow the necessary evil.
So hold on.
Well,
So no,
Scott's
hold on.
happy
This
about
is
that
a
part.
really good point. If anybody feels like we loop on this subject a little bit too much or whatever, I am happy to move to the debate, because that is the other thing that is just blowing my fucking mind. Because it's like, so obviously, I work with PV, I'm trying to back Biden over Trump, all that kind of stuff, but I cannot believe that I am actually being given the choice: Biden's corpse or Trump. That is my choice. It is.
I've been saying he's got pudding for brains back for how long? Dude, he's crazy.
For 2 years, but I was like, his pudding brain is better than Trump's.
Remember after the Herb report? Oh, he's sharp as a tack. He's so sharp.
Pause.
He's just the god.
Hold on. Pause. I'm gonna. We can do that if you'd like. But I'm not done with this. Not with what you just said. All right, well, and first of all, to Gibbs, because I didn't get a chance to answer your question previously. You brought up at first what sounded like a zombie apocalypse, but you were trying to make a cogent point there. It was hitting under you, but it was, but no, if the president,
I said smallpox, but yeah, sure.
Or imagine
smallpox,
COVID with or imagine COVID, but with Ebola levels of fatality.
Yeah, I hear you, right? And you're saying that what if the president quarantined the state to save the rest of us, and should it be allowed to be criminally prosecuted? I say yeah, right? I say yeah, that he should be the possibility should exist for this person to be brought up on charges, but it should be clear through the evidence that's brought up that this was reasonable, right? As you laid them out, but maybe it's not as you laid out.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
maybe it seemed that way, or maybe they lied. What if they lied, right? And they went through great pains to say oh yeah, this is a.
Presidents don't lie. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. So
I want to go after Gibbs.
Yeah, so here's the problem with that, Prime, right? So say I live in an isolationist part of Massachusetts. I don't really know the geography of Massachusetts that well, but I'm like, oh, okay, I need to get out. We got to get out of here. And so I can prove definitively, beyond a reasonable doubt, that if I had been allowed, me and my family to go, my family wouldn't have died. But somehow I survive Ebola smallpox, and then the rest of my family dies. Okay. I would have an actionable case against him by your own theory, even if he could justify it might have saved all these other people, because I can still prove, oh, well, you, the president, unduly put me in danger because I can prove I could have escaped, right? For whatever reason. So it's that's the can of worms you're opening, and then they're never going to be able to do it. And you can even charge them with basically, I don't know, some kind of criminal negligence, or maybe even a higher crime like manslaughter in that thing. And then they could be going to jail for doing the good of the country.
You guys think that I'm afraid of putting away officials? They're I have some sort of aversion. I don't have an aversion to putting away the president. I wish more presidents were rotting in jail. I wish more presidents. I wish we gave more tools to more people to put more presidents in jail.
Yeah, but why would you ever run for office?
That's exactly what I want. Oh, what? Yeah, I want people to have that in their minds. I absolutely do. When they take the office of the president,
absolutely want people to be afraid to run for office.
Listen,
yes.
I want people to be afraid of the government too.
You asked me a question, so I'm going to say, yeah, I want people to be afraid. I want to be terrified. I want the type of people who run, right, to be the judicious type, to understand that there's dangers here, but I'm going to do this any which way, right? That there are responsibilities that I'm going to be expected to uphold.
Who do you think you're going to get that does that?
How downstream is your line?
I think we would get a lot better people than the ones that we.
No,
that
you're gonna get the
usually
evil
go.
fuckers.
Prime. Wait, what did
the
you?
evil fuckers will be most afraid because they know.
Yes, you're gonna get the evil psychopaths that don't care, and then once they get in office,
whatever.
Sure.
Don't you, Gibbs, like advocate like literally like people, like governments should be afraid of their people? Like isn't that why you're like pro?
Yeah, but there's a difference. Hold on, there's a difference between the fear that I advocate for, and there's a difference in what he's advocating for, right? The fear that I'm advocating, I will break it down. The fear I'm advocating for is that the government officials should have the power to make the laws without fear of like retribution from frivolous lawsuits, et cetera, but like, and so that they can do their job properly. If you have these people that are so afraid to do their job, what you're going to get is people that aren't afraid to take the risk, that are psychopaths, and you're going to get your Stalins. You're not going to get these altruistic. Hold on. I'm going to get back to that point. You're not going to get these altruistic people that he's talking about. You're going to get the evil fuckers. That's why the fear that I'm talking about is good. Okay, sure, whatever. The fear that I'm talking about is that these government people are, they're going to enact the laws, but they might have to fear that the people might rise up and then string them up afterwards.
So they'll have the fear of the courts. They won't have the fear of getting shot by the people, right? Sure. And so they'll be they won't have they won't be
totally
afraid
different
to do their
fears,
jobs
Brian.
because they'll have a structured. So they shouldn't be afraid to do their jobs because they'd have a structured process that they could go through where they could put out their case and prove their innocence, right? Instead, you'd rather, of course, them to be afraid of mob justice. Like that's literally what you're advocating for.
There's absolutely
hold on. There's a point.
Yeah, mob justice is worse.
No, it's not. It's not what I'm advocating
for. There's a point that Gibbs and Tom kind of created in my mind, and I want to get it out before I lose it, okay? So one of the things that we were talking about was intent. And this is the one thing that Tom said that I actually does give me like the ick, basically. And the reason why is, let's say we had this scenario where we had like COVID with Ebola levels of fatality. But then we quarantined a specific part of Louisiana that was 95% black. And so under the color of law, they were able to say, well, we had a quarantine. There was Ebola, it was infecting this community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then you found text messages from the people who were involved with the quarantine who were saying, yeah, we're going to lock down this place. That way we can kill as many black people as possible because fuck them. Like at that point, I think that should open up criminal prosecution. And just because there's like absolute immunity because it falls under like the authority of the CDC or falls under the authority of the president or something like that. I think that should strip away your immunity if you're shown to have like criminal intent in order to cause harm to other people.
Thank you for that. I'm going to
especially citizens.
Lacto has something you want to say to me, but like counterpoints about a question that I mean to ask, and you may not know the answer to this specifically, Lactoid, but that phrase "absolute immunity" is what everyone's been throwing around today. Like, does that phrase mean something specific? Is that above immunity? Like what? Like what does absolute immunity mean in this context?
So absolute immune differs here from presumptively immune in the sense of when you look at, for example, communications between the president to the DOJ to go do something, like to go investigate like voter fraud. Even if like a jury believes, for example, that the actual intent of this, the hidden intent, was to do something evil, right? It doesn't matter. The action itself is immune. And this is, I think, where, Connor, your position gets a little bit uncomfortable on the other end, which is, if you find text messages, right? I understand that your position is like, oh, we have this incredibly strong evidence. But the reality is, most of the time, this isn't how juries are making their determinations, right? They're making their determinations off of their vibes, right? Oh, I think he probably did this because of this. He probably could have done that. He probably, I'm thinking about it, maybe he did that. And what the Supreme Court doesn't want is for the executive power to essentially be neutered. Because shit, I mean, you can get fucking a jury to believe anything, right? I mean, fuck, a jury found OJ not guilty. You can get a jury to believe anything. In law school, we're taught these people have fourth grade reading levels.
Son did it.
They have 7.
Says he's not guilty though.
They have 7 minute. They have 7 minute attention spans. Did I misspeak? Did I say that he was found not guilty?
No,
I said his son did it.
I was gonna say I think Furman did it.
No, his son didn't do it. He fucking did it.
His son did that shit.
No, I went through all the fucking evidence, and I had to like bring it up to fucking fanatic. I know that I've seen the DNA evidence. I've seen all of it. He fucking
DNA evidence
did it.
also works for his son.
No,
all the DNA evidence at the time. DNA evidence was not as good as it is today.
Needs to be
they were
pointed
both
out
matches.
that Fabian is not
Stop
being
trolling
right
me.
now. He is trying to impress black women. Okay, he is
Stop
not being
trolling. Stop trolling me. Stop trolling me. Okay,
I'm not trolling you. I legitimately believe his son did that shit.
No.
Okay, he's
oh
trying to
God,
impress
Scott,
black women.
really?
He's trying to impress
Okay,
black
well, Scott, we'll have to address that later because that's crazy. Yeah, okay, well, a lot of people are crazy. But O.J. Simpson absolutely fucking did it.
Especially O.J.'s son.
O.J. Simpson, not the son. The Simpson, he did it. Okay, the juice is loose, stabbing women. He fucking did it. And a jury found him not guilty. So obviously, there's Jesus fucking Christ. There's a problem. There's a problem. There's a problem with juries here finding all sorts of shit, right? Like Prime. This is not a fully fleshed out example, but like, let's say the EPA is under the Clean Air Act, is directed by the president to ban some sort of like carbureted engine. And so the EPA bans it. And then my motorcycle, let's say, is carbureted. And now I can't ride my motorcycle because it's banned under the Clean Air Act. And the president wants to reduce the amount of CO2 emissions. Now they come and I have to give them my motorcycle. And because I do, I'm unable to, I don't know, save a life somehow, I guess. Or I can't get to the hospital in time and I fucking die. Some crazy fucking scenario.
Can't be Knight Rider anymore.
But I can prove to a jury that absent the president doing this, I probably would not have hold on, bad example because I'd be dead. Let's say that somebody could prove that a family member could prove that absent this rule, I would still be alive. Do you really think it'd be reasonable for the president to have to defend themselves, even if they are victorious, by the way, to have to defend themselves of the 100 fucking lawsuits that they're going to get hit with every single fucking day because somebody arguably died because some economic or environmental or social policy the president has enacted?
Lactoid. I understand that there are going to be gray areas here. I get it, right? I get there are going to be points where that just seems unreasonable. That's fair, right? But before we can even get there, we have to agree on the things that should be black and fucking white. So I asked you, if the president commits genocide on the American people, should they be prosecuted?
Just Maine.
Wiping out Massachusetts. Or whichever state that you like the most, right?
Technically wouldn't be genocide.
That wouldn't be genocide, right? We got to argue over these definitions. Nuking Japan was not genocide.
Sure. No, hold on. We don't have to do that. We don't have to go there, right?
So nuking Massachusetts would also not be genocide.
Wiping out Massachusetts, just deciding okay, we're going to clear out the state, right? We're going to gun them all down. That wouldn't be a genocidal act. Is that what you're saying here?
I would be opposed.
You're just using the term improperly.
Yeah, I would be opposed, but it wouldn't be genocide.
Say mass murder.
We ethnically cleansed.
It wouldn't even be ethnically
Massachusetts, whatever the name is.
You know what he's pushing for.
But
Massachusetts.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Connor, I know you're saying, well, you know what you know what he's pushing at. But here's the thing. It's not clear. And a jury's not going to find it clear. Okay, what he's pushing at. There's a lot of people in this country who genuinely believe that there is currently an ongoing trans genocide, and they will look at you right in the eye and argue this very vitriolically.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm ignoring all of that because I don't care about any of that. Okay, ethnically cleansed, right? And I disagree that this can't be called a genocide. I think it absolutely could, but whatever. That's fine, right? Ethnically cleansed,
say mass murder.
Or mass murder, whichever term that you love the most, right?
The president arguably
is trying to help you avoid the gray area.
It's not within the official acts of the president.
No.
It's not within the official acts of the president to remove mass.
They passed the law. That's why I framed it at the beginning, right? Congress passed the law, and they said mass murder anyone who was ever born in Massachusetts, right? So I asked you, should the president, for actually following through on that, should he be prosecuted? And you said no, that's not a problem.
Well, wait. Let me be clear. When you say pass a law, are you saying pass a constitutional? Hold on.
Mass murder act.
A constitutional amendment. Because arguably, if it was just a statute, you might run afoul of the multiple constitutional protections of the people of Massachusetts.
No,
right.
If you passed,
we already established that Congress has historically passed and knowingly passed unconstitutional laws, right? The Flagged Act of 1989.
Okay, let's add another level. What if
they
the
knowingly passed
what
laws?
if the Supreme Court approves?
Guys, we don't have to get.
I'll answer.
Real quick. They're called Massachusetts. Just
who cares? Who cares about them? Who cares about these fucking people? Listen,
let's
say if there is a constitutional amendment to do this, then it would be legal, and the Supreme Court should not overturn it. If a constitutional amendment is not overturned, the Supreme Court should block the action, but Congress and the president should not be held. They should not be held criminally liable.
No, sorry. I think you're avoiding the question, and maybe you're not. So I'm going to try it again, because the act has happened, right? So, as we know, the courts move slowly. This was a quick thing. We sent them in, and
they do an injunction immediately.
Supreme Court can issue injunctions fucking within two seconds.
Okay, come on. Let him get and by the way, I do have an example.
Hold on. We dropped the nuke. We dropped nukes on Massachusetts. Okay, right? Was there an injunction in time? No, there was not an injunction in time. They didn't fucking know until afterwards.
Was there a law?
It doesn't. Yeah, but I mean the act of
the law is going to take more than 2 seconds to pass. There is no current statutory authority that grants presidents the right to nuke Massachusetts.
Oh my God.
Okay, Lactoid. I have an example that I think will be capable of communicating the mission or the message while being specific enough. Okay. So the AUMF of 2001 was passed with broad sweeping powers for the president of the United States to be able to take action in the Middle East and North Africa and other places in order to combat terrorism. Oftentimes, discretion was left up to him and the military advisors. One of the technologies they used was a daisy cutter, which is a bomb that was typically used in order to clear out airfields. The way that some people used was on the caves of Tora Bora in order to basically knock down the caves and collapse them and all that kind of stuff. But as an example, as a show of force against the Taliban, Donald Trump did a daisy cutter on the outside of a Taliban-held town before the withdrawal or something.
Mother of all bombs.
Now, so let's do this. Let's extend it just a little bit. Let's say instead of him dropping it on the outskirts of a show of force against this Taliban-head town, let's say he drops it on the town itself. And we know specifically that he knew there was no major military advantage, and he was just fuck it, I just want to kill some fucking Afghans today or whatever. At that point, should he lose any of his immunity because he's authorized by the AUMF to have broad discretion to do it?
So if he did it in America, maybe because of the constitutional protections afforded to Americans on American soil, but on non-Americans on non-American soil, no, there's no constitutional protections for them. He can do it.
Yeah, and so that I think that's the bullet that Prime wants you to bite down on because it's
that's the law. Do I want it to be this way? Or maybe I want it to change, probably, but that's what the law is.
Hold on.
Okay,
but I'm talking about using this on domestic population. So you were talking about
so use the same example.
They have constitutional protections in ways that Middle Easterners don't. In the Middle East.
That's why I'm talking about them. Yes, that's why I've been talking about a domestic crime.
Yeah, so if a president violates the constitutional rights of people, this court case specifically says that if a president is acting outside of the Constitution, then that's an unofficial act. Then they could be held criminally responsible. Ooh. But if they act
outside of their official duties. Okay, let's focus on this.
But they would probably do it
outside their official duties. And if they're
as designated by the Constitution.
Okay, but so then how do acts of Congress come into play, right? Because there's an act of Congress that says that this is part of your official duty, right? This is what we interpret it to be, right? And he follows through on that. And again, we're talking about wiping out Massachusetts, right? So he follows through on that. Then that's outside of his official duty. How do we determine?
It's presumed. It's presumed.
Okay, so now
right. So if it's within his constitutional duties, it's absolute, right? But if it's from a statute of Congress where it's arguable whether or not it is legal, it's presumed. But a court could review all the facts and rebut that presumption. They could look at all the evidence and say, you know what?
That's why Trump Trump, any president, right? Trump, not necessarily, especially, maybe a little bit more so, but that's why every president has a team of fucking lawyers, right? That they have these conversations with, and they go, ought I act on this or ought I not act on it? And even before this case, that is part of those conversations is, do you have the authority to do this or do you not? And so even if Congress passes a law that says, you know, you have the authority to do this, his own lawyers, especially after this case, or some other president's lawyers, are gonna be like, look, just because Congress says it, we think this might fall into the section presumed. We are pretty certain that like this is going to get struck down in the courts, and if you do this, you're going to open yourself up to all kinds of problems. Like, they have these conversations with their lawyers so that they don't do things that like puts them in jeopardy. And I think that's a fair fear. I would like that fear to be bigger, right? And I just want to share a quote. Most people attribute this quote, you know, to Thomas Jefferson in the Federalist Papers, and it's not. It's actually John Basil Barnhill. In 1914, he did a series of published debates about socialism, and he utterly defeats socialism. In 1914, long before the Russian Revolution even occurs, he destroys socialism, and he says, quote, "Where the people fear the governments, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty." Right? I do think it is healthy for our politicians to have some fear that the people will come after them. And part of that fear can be placed in the criminal justice system, and part of that fear can be placed outside of the criminal justice system. But I do think it is healthy for any country, if it is going to exist, that our politicians think twice about the things that they do against especially American citizens in that regard. But I think our use cases got a little far away because of maybe some misunderstanding about the concept of presumed liability versus presumed immunity versus absolute immunity, because that would fall under presumed.
They already have somewhat like questioning everything. They have lawyers around them all the time who are able to tell them whether or not they're going to get in trouble with the Supreme Court or whether or not they have any sort of issues with immunity.
Yeah, like Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, like
I was saying, like Trump had a team of lawyers
ready.
about whether or not he should do things, especially when it came to all of this like election stuff. Like he had lawyers around him that were like, yeah, you can like when he was talking to that famous phone call that got clipped when he was talking to the governor of Georgia, his lawyer was on the phone. Like one of his lawyers was on the phone call with him, right? Like they have lawyers that are trying to determine whether or not you're about to overstep your bounds.
I think everyone who's watching this knows that the president has teams of lawyers. This is not new information. We got that.
There's like 20 people on the call.
Well, I think the only thing that Lactoid was trying to point out though was just the fact that like just because you pass a law through Congress doesn't mean that it's going to stand up past constitutional review by the courts. And so as a result, somebody who passes the law then does something unconstitutional doesn't mean that they're going to be afforded this full protection that everybody is afraid of.
Yeah.
I'll ask one other question, and then we can move on to the debate for the rest of the time before the sports betting thing.
Listen, I'm just ready to get schlocked on that one. All right.
Okay.
But he's your guy.
I don't know what that means.
Lactoid.
Wanged.
So if something is presumed,
dithered,
not presumed, sorry, because I can't use that word here. If an act has absolute immunity, right, part of the core values, right? So like, what's the process there? So like, as a prosecutor, I disagree that this is within their core duties, constitutional duties. So do I still get to bring the charge and then a judge strikes it down, or do I not get to bring the charge?
Okay. You bring the charge, you argue your case, like there's an investigation, and then it gets struck down.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right. Well,
and then common law builds upon that, and that like because there isn't a specific test put out, it's basically left up to common law now, which is each court and multiple decisions are going to kind of over time build a corpus of what is generally considered to be specifically absolute immunity and what is presumed immunity, right? So like individual cases are going to be brought up over time because there's lawfare, right? And anti-SLAPP and all this stuff. So there's all this lawfare. You know, the DNC and RNC are going to be bringing cases against whomever is president all the fucking time. And it's going to be like, no, this isn't, this is presumed. And then they'll be like, this specific thing, because of this statement in the Constitution, is we consider it to be this. And that will be the the common law built upon precedents,
I
right?
hear
It's
you.
just this case just creates the classification between those
So
without
Trump is
necessarily
not
saying which
going
one
to
falls into which.
To summarize it for the people at home, Trump is not going to unilaterally torture the gays to death on, February 23rd, 2025. So don't presume
Yeah,
that.
I know.
That would not be an
Damn.
official act, I would argue. Yes.
Well, why
Um,
not though? Because if he is the like commander in chief, why aren't those things that fall under the,
Because his
what he
duties
does
are
with the military,
articulated.
you know?
His duties are articulated under Article 2 of the Constitution, and then also all of the emergencies that are declared. Like I learned this today, as a matter of fact. So the state of emergency is not arbitrarily declared by the President of the United States. There's 136 specific emergencies that can be declared, and there's a predicate, meaning that there has to be like some situation that's fulfilled before he can declare the state of emergency. And then there's specific enumerated powers. So he can't be like, COVID came back, I can torture the gays to death. He can't do that. He has to have a predicate, a justification, and then a follow through.
But like with if I remember correctly, there was what he called the Muslim ban, and people got upset about it. Obviously, it technically was not a Muslim ban. I get it, but there was a lot of
Yeah, it was
justification
Obama's
saying that these people didn't live in the country, and so the like any sort of what do you call it? Any sort of like protections for protected classes or anything like that they were still able to like discriminate based on these things. If they're making like an argument that there is some sort of like threat from the gays where they're like transing our children or some bullshit like that, like what are they not able to apply these things to where like some sort of protected class?
The foreign gays would have more problems than the domestic gays. The domestic gays would have
that would
their
be the exact
protections under
opposite
the
of a
Bill of
Muslim
Rights.
ban.
Easier.
It'd be
Well,
the
no,
inverse
that?
of a Muslim ban. That'd be banning people from all the countries that aren't Muslim.
No, I'm saying that isn't there some sort of like scenario where all of a sudden the protected classes wouldn't matter?
Took you a second, sorry.
Yeah, if they're foreigners.
Okay.
So
This is, by the way, this is why we have Guantanamo Bay, by the way, because technically the people there can be tortured because they're not U.S. citizens
And
on U.S.
who
jurisdiction.
knows how many
Listen,
fucking FBI and CIA black sites?
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, if Guantanamo Bay existed on U.S. jurisdiction that could not, like U.S. land,
you ever
that would not be
seen like what
constitutional.
is? You ever seen like some of the tactics they use, like in the illustrations from like former people?
Yeah, they got like the
like
stress
what is an
positions.
enhanced?
No, it's torture. Yeah, it's
or
just
like
torture.
Yeah, I mean, or it's like they're like it's an enhanced interrogation technique. What'd you do? Oh, well, what we do is we lock a guy in the fetal position in a box and fill it with bugs. That's one of them. It's like that's not a fuck. That's how is that not fucking torture?
It's an enhanced interrogation, Scott.
They have Joe Rogan.
Well, hold on. So
they just got to tell us what we want to know, and then they can go free.
Hold on. I also want to make something specific.
Well, actually, no.
This is
no,
this
they
is
can't.
hold on. There's a circumnavigation of the rules here that I want to talk about just really quick. So there's some torture that United States citizens conduct, like CIA operatives and all that kind of stuff, and that's the enhanced interrogation. But one of the sneaky ways that they got around this is they hired contractors from other nations. So they would fly people out to black sites in Pakistan, and I don't know if you know this, but Pakistan doesn't exactly have a whole lot of human rights. So they would pull out your toenails and hang you by your shoulders and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. America.
Just wanted to share for the class.
Yeah.
Better accept Trump as your president. I'm just saying.
Let's never forget that happened. And that George W. Bush needs to be criminally charged.
St. George. St. George.
Prime, what are your thoughts before we move on? Prime, what are your thoughts on Julian Assange?
His George Bush.
Julian Assange?
He should have.
He's the one that broke all that.
Yeah, he was the one that was like, "Hey, they're torturing people, guys."
Yeah, I don't have much thoughts on Julian Assange other than like I think that from what I understand, what they were trying to prosecute him for was BS. And I guess I'm overall glad that the charges were dropped. For journalism. Oh no, sorry, they weren't dropped. Excuse me, because he did plead guilty to one of them, and then he just had time served. Which is a bit of a problem in the first place. But like, yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a bit of a travesty. Julian Assange seems to be like like personally a horrible person, but like that's not what he should be charged for. Because then Trump shouldn't make it to office, right? But yeah, you know.
Or Biden or Obama
Or Biden either. Biden's enabling
or Bill Clinton.
Biden's enabling a genocide. That's been the
only person that we've had in 100 years that might
cool,
be a
though.
good person that was president.
No, Obama too.
There's one person.
Go ahead.
There's one person, and I hate his politics and I hate all of his policies, but Jimmy Carter might be the
Carter.
only person
I knew you were going to say that.
Like genuinely a nice person, like in his personal life. Like every other one of these
people
grew
peanuts all day. That's all he did.
Narcissistic, fucking abusive, horrible monster. The only difference, and the reason people hate Trump so much, is it's very simple. All of these other presidents have been covert, vulnerable narcissists or malignant narcissists. And Trump isn't a malignant narcissist. He's a grandiose narcissist. That's the difference. Is Trump is like, I want my fucking name everywhere. I want a statue. And the rest of them are like, oh, what a horrible person. Anyways, I came into office on a $200,000 a year salary and I left a multimillionaire. I wonder how that happened. Anyways.
I don't know how it
happened.
happened.
The other thing is, I think
Obamas.
Well, the other thing about like Trump that's really interesting is I think that Dave Chappelle really hit this on the head, right? When his comedy skit about him, where he's like, Trump is the first president that come out and go, everything they're doing in that house, you're right, they're doing it. And now I'm going to go back in there. And like people like to like corrupt honesty. Like there's a large portion of people that just
it's
like
grandiose narcissism.
And that appeals to a lot of people, and it also turns off a large segment as well. Like
it's grandiose narcissism. It's I'm the greatest and I don't care, and like anyone that you don't like that doesn't like me, I just get rid of them. Everyone must fulfill the fantasy that I'm the greatest in the world.
So for the next 20 minutes, we can talk about the debate thing. The reason why I was like, whatever on this is because I think for this group that like everyone agrees. I'd be shocked that well, let's find out. Okay. Does anyone first of all, did everyone watch the debate? Let's start with that, right?
I watched it.
All of them. I watched the debate. Okay, great. Does anyone think that
debate.
Biden is fit for the presidency after watching that debate? No. Okay,
No.
So we all agree.
I don't get how we don't have an age limit.
No, I think Tom Foolery was disagreeing. I think Tom Foolery thinks that he's fit to be president.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
And also there's something moral that I want to pick at. So sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I want to pick at the moral thing. So something that like some people aren't realizing, which I just want to articulate. Like you have to understand that Trump is viewed from anybody left of Romney as a malevolent force. He will achieve malevolent policy goals. He will institute laws that they disagree with. He will appoint people that they disagree with. He will do bad things. So then with Biden, they view him as a benign force. So he's not going to make the situation much worse. Basically, if he appointed his entire cabinet and then he just died on the first day, that would not be the country getting worse for wear over time. And so when you're telling people, well, the choice is between Biden and Trump, so wouldn't you rather have competent malevolence over like incompetent, benign neglect? That's the moral choice that people who are voting for Biden are pushed with.
Can I just want to say...
So that's why that's insane. This very quickly. This is why that's insane. It's insane because in order to have that opinion, you have to believe that a Biden presidency is going to be inaction, as opposed to if he is this benign thing, right? Then the concept would be then that he doesn't act, so it would maintain the status quo. But that's not what he's done in his presidency. What is like he still has a cabinet and he still has people around him, and they're still making decisions and actions. So that opinion is born out of like just pure lack of logic.
It's not only that
action that Biden has taken that a Democrat would object to. What is the worst action that Biden has taken that a Democrat would object to?
Probably his support of Israel and sending some funds and his open support of Israel in
and the vaccine mandate.
Liberal people,
arguably.
I think most of the left is fairly okay with vaccines.
Yeah, I was going to say the leftists are going to be more against the Israel support, but on top of that, like I would say, it seems like one of the most controversial things he does is some of the shit where he's saying,
but it's
like,
still
oh,
irrelevant to the logic.
I want a black woman as like, you know, my vice president and shit like that. That's one of the
so
things
he's a little
that, like,
racist.
Unpopular with
no,
the identity politics stuff. But
you skip the critique. Counterpoints. You skip the critique. The critique is that in order for you to believe that he is benign, then you have to believe that his administration doesn't act. Right.
Well, and so
he's
that's
going to act.
With this is that like the reason that I do think he is fit for president is a number of reasons. One is because yes, he seems to have a good team around him. Two, he seems to be doing just fine while he's president right now, and he's doing a great fucking job. Best president
by what metric?
By all metrics, every metric.
Just name one.
Housing.
Name one area.
How's he doing on housing?
What? Yeah, I was gonna say like some of the bills that they tried passing even just like the immigration bill that came up, it didn't end up.
Oh, Christ!
Yes, you don't know anything about it, Gibbs. We already know he doesn't know anything.
Just one area, like economy, immigration, foreign policy, trade, like.
Well, let me finish my spiel real quick. Like
it was endorsed by Border Patrol.
I felt like he did just fine. Yes, obviously
Border Patrol didn't endorse
him when he's mumbling, but he is like responding to what it is that people are saying. His points are coherent. He is throwing shots at Trump and like getting him with digs. Like he's doing all.
Yeah, in the second half when his drug cocktail.
He's just kind of. He's just kind of mumbling and like talking slowly the whole
time.
When
he looks dead, he looks like a corpse.
Okay, but you made a claim that he's successful.
But he is like
by what metric? By what metric is he successful?
Well, he's alive and running in the country.
The same by anybody else. Yes, no, he's
able to make it on stage, Scott. That's pretty successful.
No. Like I really want to hear Tom Fuller's answer here. I really want to hear. I really want to hear Tom. Hold on. I really want to hear Tom Fuller's answer. You're saying that he's doing good, that he's doing well, right? Maybe not good, well, we'll say well. That there is some level of success to his presidency. What sector, what issue, what sector of his positions, like however you want to define it, is he doing well on? And don't just give me he's passing legislation. Give me something from a utilitarian. Yeah, give me a utilitarian. This was bad and now it's better.
I don't know that it has to be better than what.
Well, then how is it successful?
What do you mean?
Okay, I think.
Well, you have the positive position that it is successcust. I'm saying, what about his presidency has been successful?
He did good with black jobs.
Well, not even just that.
Not even as well as Trump did. Trump did better.
He's saying I can't bring up. It doesn't matter. You're making it to where like it has to be like a one or the other sort of thing. Where like one, I do think that he is way less divisive and he's going to cause a lot less problems with the sorts of things that he says. I do think that he's not going to say as controversial things and cause like issues with he said
we killed Medicare. That's pretty controversial.
Like that.
right. So your example. So your level of success is that he is less.
If you're going to take away his entire fucking job and then say, "Oh, you can't."
No. I said no. I took away. I took no. No, I'm doing an internal critique. Oh no. I'm doing an internal critique. I am doing an internal critique of your moral system in which what is good and what is bad is based off of the utilitarian calculus of making improvements. And I'm saying name one sector of either the economy or immigration you gave one. You gave one.
But
I'm sorry. You're not a consequentialist. You're what are you? A virtue ethicist? Let's do it in virtues.
Like a rule utilitarian, but yeah.
Fine. So as a rule utilitarian, I'm gonna nail him to the fucking wall, and you're gonna let me here. Okay. Yeah, listen to me. You gave one example.
To you, then we'll go to counterpoints, and then anyone else.
The example that you gave is that he is well liked. And that he is not prone to saying controversial statements, and that is better than Trump. Even on that domain, I call bullshit. And the reason I call bullshit is because his approval numbers are not fucking high, and there's certain and you have, even with the media backing him, he is a laughing stock of European politicians. You had Boris Johnson. You had Boris Johnson laughing at him at the last meeting that they had when he was Prime Minister of England. Why? Because he's a fucking an embarrassment and a joke. And when you look at East Asia, such as China, you have China, for example, coming after America and dogging us, and we're incapable of having the moral high ground against them because all they did was make fun of us for racism. You have our breakdown of relationships with North Korea, where there was actual substantive conversations and possibility for through roads happening.
Utilitarian analysis, because Trump was literally
why can't I
laughed at by the entire fucking world, bro. There's no way that you can say, oh, this
by the
one
entire
guy
media
that everybody else laughs at.
He made NATO pay.
No shot.
That was successful.
You're saying he's successful as if it's a positive thing, and yet he is a laughing stock, even with the media running fucking cover for him
Trump.
constantly.
You can't bring that up as some sort of difference maker. You said it has to be better than Trump. He is not.
They hated him. They didn't feel sorry for him. That's different.
You did. You brought it up like 3 times and said, how is this better than Trump? And even when I would name something,
no, I said, how is it a success?
Trump did it better.
He's not successful.
Yes, and so every time I mentioned something, you said he didn't do it better than Trump. But now you're bringing up a
reframing. No. You made the positive position that he is successful, not that he is better than Trump. Okay, I would say that they were both a failure.
He's the most successful president ever. By the way.
You made it about better.
They're both a failure. No. You're trying to run from the positive position that you claim, which is that he's successful. He's not well liked.
Okay.
He's not well respected.
My positive position by saying that it has to be better than Trump. You did challenge it numerous times, saying, "But Trump did that better." But that's not better than what Trump did.
That's just the most recent president. I'm giving you that. So I can show how he's certainly not as well liked as Obama. He's certainly not as well liked as.
I agree. Look.
A slew of other presidents.
I agree that Tom is being a bit.
He's not successful.
I have an answer for you, Fabian, or Scott, excuse me, but I'll save it till later because I want to get everyone else through. So we're going to go to Gibbs, we're going to go to Counterpoints, we're going to Lag to it, and we're going to go to Ali.
So I think it was Counterpoints that said this a little bit ago, which is the difference between the people on the left, how they see Trump versus the Biden with the malevolence, the active malevolence versus like the benign, inaction or whatever. That's not how people, like a lot of people I know in the middle and the right, and even now people on the left see it. I think people are actively starting to see that Biden is actually benign incompetence at best and benign malevolence at worst. Like, this guy is an idiot. There's no, like, he's gone, and like, and when I say idiot, I don't mean he was always an idiot. I mean he's gone down to like 3rd grade level reading. Like, that's terrible. His brain is like mush.
He can read fine.
He's pretty clear. No,
he can read a teleprompter fine.
No, hold on, that's not
true. That's
why
I did so well after the debate and couldn't during the debate.
I was going to bring that up. Thank you for bringing that. I sat here and saw the Democrats sit here and praise his after the debate speech the next day when I heard him and people said, "Oh, it was speech impediment." No, bro, I know what a speech impediment sounds like.
It's just a stutter, bro.
Hold on, and I know what mental degradation sounds like. And when you go row was one of the best cases in history. We're gonna and like that is like the literal. This is what my grandfather did. He literally had Alzheimer's, and he's
just stuttering.
No, it's not stuttering. Your mind is. It's not. Your mind is going. You lose the capability to have higher. I know he is. To have higher, I can't even think of the word function, where you can't talk.
Right there, Gibbs.
Yeah, thank you. I have Alzheimer's. I probably have CTE.
Well, Gibbs isn't running for fucking president.
Yeah, that's also a good point. I'm not running for president. I'm not sitting here trying to say with my CTE I'd be a good president at age 906,000. The guy looks like the fucking crypt keeper. And then this guy down here has the audacity to say this is the most successful president in history, and then bring up a border bill that failed because it was terrible. The worst border bill in history.
You have no fucking idea. I've heard you talk about it 3 times. Every time you're totally wrong about it. Every fucking time.
I've literally gone point by point through every fucking thing in that border bill and fucking proven how terrible it is. Oh my god. I have literally pages and pages of notes I can pull up. But you're right, I don't remember it because I have CTE. And
immigration is a bad one to go against Gibbs on. He's actually pretty passionate about it. He knows what he's talking about on that.
I'm not going to sit here and fucking
is too passionate on that one, actually.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm not wrong. But it's okay. But here's the thing. You know, Scott brought up a bunch of good points. Every single thing you brought up, there's better points to why he's a failure. Yeah, Trump is hated, but he was actually successful. Versus, you can argue that everything Biden's done has legitimately made the country worse. So the idea that
Biden also has the lowest approval rating.
Incompetent person in the history of our country as president,
about with the speech impediments and all of that, though. That
it's not just speech impediment. Come on, dude.
The point is that the people in the center and the people on the right, and now the people on the left are starting to see this as a malevolent act that is being perpetrated by the people around him, which is a terrible point that Dems make. That he's got a good team around him. No, these are evil fuckers, just like Biden's an evil fucker, and that's how the people on the right see it. So when people on the left go, "Oh, well, Trump's malevolent," well, good, I guess. Maybe we need some malevolence to counteract this evil that we have in power now.
Okay,
that's what we have to say to get Trump out of office. Then, so we're just he's coming afterwards, so he's the answer to Trump.
So let's go to counterpoints. Lactoid and Ali.
Yeah. So I would appreciate some patience from the anti-Biden side of the aisle, and I would just like to articulate.
Fuck you! No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna start screaming at you one way or the other. So let's just
based. So all right. So what I think that folks would happily articulate about Biden is that he's a continuation of the status quo. So the question is whether or not you see that as good or bad. Also, what I would say is that COVID was the biggest economic disaster to hit us probably since the Great Depression. I would say it was probably the worst. I think it is probably worse than 2007. And 2007 was fucking bad.
You mean
2007 people.
No, I mean, most metrics you'd be right.
The housing.
By most metrics you'd be right.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the 2008 financial meltdown, I think it was worse. So what you can say that like, oh, it would have been better if Trump had like, cut more taxes or been more business friendly or whatever. But we are talking about recovering from the worst financial disaster since the Great Depression in the past 4 years, I guess. Then when it comes to like BLM or all that kind of shit, like the civil unrest that was largely under Trump, but then kind of petered out under Biden, I think I'm not going to give Biden credit for that. That is just time. Those movements petered out. And what I would say is having a Democrat in office also probably took the wind out of the sails of a lot of those movements. So as a result, those things kind of calmed down. When it comes to the defense stuff, I would say that while Afghanistan was a total fuck up in a shit show, I do prefer ripping the tourniquet off over just meandering in Afghanistan for another few years. I would rather just fucking get it done. So those are the things that I would kind of point to as like,
oh, come on now.
What?
Not that one, right? Like, I mean, I think we can all agree that was a bad withdrawal, right? Like, we could have kept Bagram. We could have gotten our own people out. You know what I mean? Like that was a dismal failure of the Biden administration.
Yeah. Okay. There are a billion ways in which I would run that withdrawal differently.
It was worse than Vietnam leaving the way we did it.
I very much doubt that, considering like Vietnam. Never mind. Let's not get into the historical aspects of it.
I think they're hard to compare because the cultural context is just so different.
I think everybody knew
it was similar though.
Everybody knew that Afghanistan.
I mean, people are losing our helicopter. We had the photo of the helicopter leaving. We had people in the runway treads leaving. You know what? You're right. Yeah, it's hard to compare. Afghanistan's worse. You're right.
Vietnam didn't have cell phones back then, and just that alone changes the way we view things. Is the ability to film things.
Also,
right? Like,
no offense, but
Vietnam might have been worse if we saw all of those
American servicemen for being flooded by refugees and deciding to take off. I don't fault the servicemen or the people on the ground.
Yeah, no, I fault Biden's horrendous botched plan.
Don't make me play the lame cards. I don't want to play the lame cards. One of the lame cards is that Trump is the one who scheduled that withdrawal intentionally to fuck over Biden, and it was originally scheduled for August of that year.
Yeah.
Where's the evidence that he did it to fuck over Biden?
I don't have.
He thought he
because I mean, like,
he won the election.
Trump, and not only that, but Trump also attempted pullouts in Syria, and his own fucking people were working against him and lying to him about troop movements, right? So I don't know. I'm not saying Trump's great. I'm just saying this was a Biden failure for sure.
Well, and you're also kind of scratching at something that I would point to, which is I think Trump was largely an ineffectual leader. Now you can blame the swamp or the deep state on that, but I think that working with the existing institutions as they presently exist is something you have to do as president of the United States. So
I mean, like that's why No, I agree with you. I mean, like the fact that Trump has two totally different presidencies when you look at the first half and the second half when it comes to military action. And part of that, like you see him in the beginning, he kept John Bolton and was listening to John Bolton's advice, right? And then somewhere in the middle, you see him give an interview. I want to say it was CBS, it might have been MSNBC, where he says, no, there is a military industrial complex. First president to ever say that as a sitting president, and says that there are people in the room that will lie to you. Right? Eisenhower was getting out when he said it, though.
He called Bolton he called Bolton a warhawk specifically, and was like,
right.
This guy wants to debate everybody. Clear.
His second term is hilariously enough informed by being in president, because it's very obvious that he had no fucking clue about geopolitics or war or how to conduct it in any way, and he just listened to yes men that were warmongers from previous administrations. And after the situation with Iran, the scare with Iran, you see a completely different presidency, right? He was told like he was a great president when he bombed the airstrip in Syria, and then later in his presidency, he's doing everything he can to get out of Syria. So yeah, no, I don't think there's any question that he was that he made plenty of fuck ups. I'm just saying you can't look at Afghanistan under the Biden administration as Trump's fault or in any way, shape, or form not a dismal failure of the Biden administration.
Okay, so and I'm not going to bother defending Afghanistan. So then if we're talking about so this is my actual problem with this conversation is I think the Democrats are stuck because it's so close to the election. This is something that Brianna Wu of all people brought up, which was that if you swapped him out, not even talking about like competency, just talking about moving the funds to a new Democratic candidate could be a compliance fucking nightmare. So they might be.
They also don't have anybody.
Well, there's also
we were paid to say that.
Well, hold on.
I think there could be a way. Hold on.
Issue. Wednesday is the last day for to people to sign up for 3 or 4 major swing states. So after Wednesday, even if they did swap them, they would have to be write-in candidates in those states. So that's a big factor too.
Well, and not just that, but even let's say that there was like some kind of like law that allows you as an incumbent president to say, hey, I'm no longer medically fit, I'm dropping out, my vice president is going to be running in my stead, right? Let's say there was a law where he could literally click a button and then transfer it to Kamala Harris. Who has a better shot of winning?
Well, so
there are plenty of other Democrats.
Couldn't he give it to a super PAC?
Well, hold on. You'd need name recognition, right? So first and foremost, the incumbency advantage is based off of
who would you pick if you could?
Oh, Okay, I don't. First of all,
their best shot is maybe Gavin Newsom.
Oh, good.
Even Gavin Newsom.
I don't
like Gavin Newsom.
Ralph Nader. Pick Ralph.
Hold on. So I want to make a point about Gavin real quick.
Trump with the poop map.
So I want to make a point about Gavin Newsom real quick. Number one, Gavin doesn't want it because he doesn't want a fumbled election shortly before it happens. He wants to run in a clean election in 2028.
In 2028,
and then on top of that, Gavin Newsom almost flips me in the other direction. Have you seen his rhetoric on gun control? It's fucking horrific.
I didn't say I liked him. I just said like he's the best second choice.
Okay, so I love that idea. Okay, but if
Newsom,
Gavin Newsom would lose the Never Trumpers.
I don't want.
That's the thing.
I don't want. I don't particularly want Gavin Newsom. I don't think there's I think there are good choices for the Democratic Party, but I'm a leftist, right? And so like there's there's a problem there, right? Like there's a gap. But you asked me a question. So I would say like Wes Moore looks interesting. Governor.
Who the fuck is that?
That's
Governor
what
of Maryland. That's what I just said. There you go.
I said it too early. My apologies.
Okay.
No, it's just Prime, very quickly,
Whitmore.
like, and this is descriptive. I'm not being prescriptive here, right? The number one reason why, well, there's two reasons that an incumbent has an advantage, right? I mean, there are a bunch of reasons, but the two big ones is number one, name recognition. And that comes down to, can you imagine this person as president, right? If you can imagine this person as president, it becomes way easier to win the presidency. And the thing is someone that's already president is incredibly easy for most people to imagine as president because they've already seen it. And the second thing is stability. A lot of people will just vote for whoever's in office to maintain the thing.
Yeah.
And so the problem is that if you were attempt to replace Biden with anybody, it would have to be somebody that you can imagine as president. And so like Westmore, you can say that, but it's zero chance of winning because most people have no idea who the fuck that is.
So
Michelle Obama's trapezius muscles.
Yeah. So
Got my vote.
Okay. So here's the thing. I understand what you're saying. One, I agree with you that like now it might be disaster. So like everyone's saying, and I was having this conversation with myself because I didn't have anyone to talk to. But in my own head, I was having this conversation as I was watching
shower arguments.
Yeah, shower arguments.
We all do it. We all do debate panels. Okay, we know what a shower argument with you. It all happens to all of us.
Okay.
Especially when we're like, fuck, I should have said this.
Yeah. So anyway, but I was watching, like leftist programming, and what they were saying is that, well,
CNN got it.
Please. Oh my God, don't trigger me, please. I was watching.
Rachel Maddow.
Oh my God, stop it, please. The majority of porn
the same joke, Cedar. Admiral Gibbs.
The majority of porn was Sam Cedar. All right, that's what I was watching. A program that I really like. All right, there you go. But anyway, why am I forgetting her name right now? But the female correspondent whose name for some reason I'm forgetting, even though I
she's a woman. It doesn't matter.
But that's true. She talked about. She said that Biden being the nominee means a guarantee loss at this point, and I don't agree with that. I actually don't agree with that yet. I think that we are heading in that direction. I think the trend line is going down here, but I don't think we're in 100% lost territory yet.
October surprises happen. Those is people trying to get clicks and views.
Exactly, 100%. You're exactly right about that.
Like the Hunter Biden laptop that wasn't able to be an October surprise because
sure,
the government.
But then also on the flip side, said, well, we have a better chance if we risk it with a convention fight and then like putting up someone new. All right, so with a convention fight, maybe things would turn out better. Possibly, right? I mean, it could be. One, I think if it did happen, we would have an incredible amount of media coverage on these individuals, right? And I think that would be, people can make their case, and that would be the time to raise people's profile in a way that like you wouldn't have in any other normal media. In fact, the media is always like, if you follow presidential politics, right? Every time they have a convention, they're always looking for a floor fight. They're going to be like, it was a 67 floor fight or something like that happened with like Ted Kennedy. They're always looking for that because they're so excited. This would actually be that moment where we could have a floor fight on the convention. Yes, you would get a lot of attention that way. So there's that. But I think that to say that like people aren't taking in all the problems that happen there, because there could be backbiting. Right, there could be a lot of backstabbing going on because we have a shattered Democratic Party, and we don't all get on the same page, right? Like maybe like put Michelle Obama literally on the ticket. There's going to be people who are in tears because it wasn't them or the one they picked, and a fractured Democratic Party I think is going to lose to Trump. So I don't know the best path for it.
It is an unknown variable. Yeah, I think anybody that's saying that like it would be impossible to win under any domain is full of shit.
Yeah. So,
but then we're left with the current situation, and the current situation is Biden's corpse versus Trump's Burger King and fucking
animated
Diet Coke
corpse
fueled animated corpse.
Yeah, I mean, counterpoints. If anybody
Emma
here should be
Bigwin,
a
that's
fan
her
of that,
name. Emma
you should be
Bigwin.
as
I
a
was
40K
thinking of her
fan.
from
Like,
the majority report.
just put him on the golden throne. He'll be fine. You know, like.
Let's
Well,
go to. So
yes,
we
you're
have
about to
limited
make
time
me
left.
do
So I want to
that.
get to Lactoid and Ali.
I just wanted to say, this is going way back, Connor. You talked about how, Biden represents the status quo, and Trump is kind of this disruptor. And I think that his supporters like to see him as a disruptor, and arguably like the
He's
most
just Bill Clinton.
yeah, arguably like shit. Sorry, my computer went up. Anyway, arguably the most disruptive thing that like influence that he had was over the Supreme Court. But really, any Republican would have had that influence because they're selecting candidates right off the Federalist Society shortlist, right? And so when you actually look at like Donald Trump, I think it's evidence of like how far the Overton window has really moved to the left, that people see him as like this super right wing influence, right?
Yeah.
Like here's a candidate with like
His
the border
presidency
policy
is exactly the same as Bill Clinton.
Well,
Like,
right.
by
Hold on,
every
right.
measure.
For years
hold
now.
on, right? Like, so he's like the first president that entered into office when gay marriage was legal, supporting gay marriage, right? Obama didn't even fucking support gay marriage. He has been more or less
Or
pretty
Biden.
hands off. Yeah, well, he's been pretty
was
hands
VP.
off. He's been pretty hands off when it comes to marijuana. I know Jeff Sessions was a little bit hardcore, but even he didn't remove it from the states. The immigration policy he had was like pretty identical to Obama's. I mean, there's really
Well, Bill Clinton. It's actually closer to Clinton's.
Sure, maybe it's closer to Clinton's, right? But like what I'm trying to say is that people look at him, and I understand like the rhetoric. He's easy to, and this is part of his goal, right? He's easy to talk about. He's easy to make a villain out of. But I mean, let me ask you, of his policies, what specific policy did he have that, compared to George Bush, was right wing?
Well,
The
this is
fact that
actually
he identified as a nationalist was one.
That's not a
when
policy.
You're just talking about policies, like
Just policies.
There probably aren't policies that aren't going to look right wing if we're going like back 10, 15 years. Like, it's gonna be a lot different. But I wouldn't say that it's because the Overton windows moved, but it's because that we have.
That's literally the definition of the Overton window. If you
on.
go back
Absolutely.
15 years
I would
ago,
like an
they would
opportunity-
not be
Hold on.
considered
He's a
right
New
wing.
York
What the
Republican.
fuck are you talking
But
about?
if I can finish my fucking sentence, you would know what the fuck I'm talking about. So we have different priorities at the time, and we need different things. So if at the time we actually need immigration and people are letting immigrants in, but then all of a sudden we got a president who's like, no, immigration bad, we're going to build a wall and all this shit, then it's like it starts to see as though there's some sort of bias there, and there's some sort of problem with what that he has with immigrants, not just that he's making an immigration policy just for the hell of it, but that he's not.
Do you
actually
know what's
taking any
happening at the
of our
border?
needs into
Hold on. No, Gibbs. Let's not sidetrack because I want the
I'm
opportunity to
not
answer the
even-
question.
not even.
So
Saying that
so
the left
when-
shifts with time is the most leftist
So-
shit I've ever heard.
I mean,
what
this
is
is like a
so
New York
weird-
Republican.
That's not what I said.
Okay,
That
so
had nothing to do with the.
I would
Overton
like
window.
I would like the opportunity to answer this question. So Lactoid, it's really interesting asking that question because you're almost telling me that in policy effect, he has had liberal or democratic stuff, largely, or at least 20 years ago, he has the same effect as a Democrat or a liberal from 20 or 30 years ago, which is fine. And what's funny is some people bring up the right-wing policies, and those are some of the policies that I'm more in favor for. So for instance, like, I think we should have a secured southern border. I think we should have super vetting of immigrants who come in. I think that we shouldn't have a Muslim ban, but we should screen super hard for the Middle East and North Africa for ideological preferences for people who come into the country. There's a bunch of like right-wing things that I agree with from a policy basis. My problem is not so much the policy, it's actual incompetence in going to war with your own administration and the institutions that presently exist. And so that's the problem. Because so for instance, let's bring up like North Korea as an example of like diplomatic things that Trump did. Well, Trump didn't really achieve anything fantastic. He flew to the Koreas, shook hands with Kim Jong-il, got no policy concessions, and then flew away from the photo opportunity. That's not like a high achievement.
Well, he got a love
But
letter.
hold on.
He got a love
Hold on.
letter.
When Bill Clinton did that, he was praised. When Dennis Rodman did that, You know, maybe not so much. But like the thing is,
hold on,
hold on. Like, so when you're going with this, right? When you're going along the lines of these things that you're bringing up right here, and you're saying, okay, he brought these policies up, the Overton window shift and all these things. Yeah, that's true, right? But like, I don't understand how you say he wasn't successful with North Korea. He was just restarting talks. Like, that's a good thing. Like, we should be able to at least maybe talk to him so we could go over there and put the kibosh on their bullshit.
Counterpoints real quick. Counterpoints real quick. Counterpoints very quick, very quick. If you're saying that the photo opportunity and crossing the DMZ didn't create a substantive policy, that it seems like you're saying optics don't matter. And so if optics don't matter as far as Trump presidency is concerned, and it is about policy, and you say that his fairly centrist New York Democrat 90s policies are fine, and that the ones they say are right wing, you're actually fairly supportive of, then what the fuck is your problem with Trump?
I'll tell you, and this is actually something that Rob Knorr brought up that we didn't have time to address at our previous debate. So as another example, because I'm using incompetence as my vector of focus for why I dislike Trump. Another one would be wanting to deploy.
Well, Biden's a corpse, so don't use that.
well, wait. In reference to what? Hold on. I want to finish the sentence. So is wanting to deploy the 82nd Airborne against the wishes of the sitting governors in order to quell riots. That is a fucking insane thing for anybody who's studied republics or dictatorships or whatever to want to do. That's fucking criminally goddamn insane.
So, I mean, just to put back on
why is that crazy? Can you explain?
Pushing media, like, give him the policies. He didn't do it, obviously.
Hold on. This could be a policy, but why is that crazy?
Okay, so let me articulate why it's crazy. And then also on top of that, this is part of the reason why I got frustrated with Rob, is because I felt like any student of history should basically already know that deploying your army on domestic soil should be like an absolute last resort in order to maintain the transfer of power. So hold on.
Be really careful. This is January 6th. You got to be really careful.
I wasn't talking about January 6th.
I know, but if you're saying that we shouldn't deploy the National Guard on American soil,
hold on. I'm not talking about National Guard. I'm talking about federal troops. And by the way, that's actually
National Guard is militarized.
No, but there's a big difference.
Yes, there is a huge difference, and let me finish.
Sorry, go ahead.
So number one, it should be law enforcement, 100% all the way. Number two, if law enforcement can't handle it, it should be state police. Number three, after state police, it should be National Guard. Number four, then and only fucking then, at the request of the governor, who is the executive of the state, should you be deploying federal troops, not overriding 3 or 4 levels of the domestic security apparatus so you can have a show of force with infantry on American soil. That is fucking insane.
I don't see that. I don't see that as that insane. The National Guard is militarized. A lot of our police are militarized.
No,
I mean, I understand that you're saying there's like this big difference. I don't see personally where the big difference is.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
They have the National Guard has tanks. Like what else does this fucking other thing have?
The National Guard is the militia of the state.
Yeah, and they have tanks and jets.
Hold on,
You're pushing back against the governor, not the president of the United States.
No, y'all are pushing back against the wrong thing here. Actually, I agree with counterpoints in this.
Yeah,
the president can deploy the National Guard.
No, but hold on.
He can mobilize them under federal authority, but he has to do so, and that has to be like that's the reason why he didn't do it, is because he basically has to put in a formal request to the state in order to get the National Guard mobilized, and the governor's never asked for it.
Okay, I know this isn't true, because following Brown versus Board of Education, when the state of Arkansas refused to allow Black people into the schools, the president mobilized the National Guard and came to the fucking state and said, no, you have to let the kids go to school.
But there is still a big difference
during BLM as well to protect federal buildings.
Yeah, you can mobilize National Guard by the permission.
They just kept them on. Well, I guess it's on federal land.
Sorry, hold on. we gotta move on quickly. So Ali has been waiting, so let's get Ali in here. But then let's move on
I have
to
a dumb
the topic.
point. We can just move on.
I want to push back one thing before we move on.
Okay.
I think y'all are missing the biggest thing. Like, forget the National Guard, forget the 82nd Airborne, which I actually agree with Connor on that part. This is the issue I have with how Connor described the Trump presidency right here, when he was saying, "Oh, it was incompetence when he was at war with the government, right, or at war with the branches." That's why he was elected by these people, was to go in there and be a disruptor and what? Clear out the swamp. That's what the constituency that put him in power wanted. So if you were using your hold on, if we're using your own argument, then that is a success by Trump, because he was in there fighting the system, going to war. So that's not incompetence. That's a success by his constituents, like metrics. Like, I don't understand how you can argue.
This is the crux of the issue. This is the crux of the issue right here, actually. And this is something that I respect Rob while viciously disagreeing with him. So he views the federal government in the swamp, in the quote unquote deep state, as like irredeemably corrupt, and it needs to be ripped out root and branch and started from scratch. And I don't believe that at all. I think like 90 to 95% of the federal government functions just fine, and there's 5% that there's a huge problem with accountability that we absolutely need to work on, and nepotism and cronyism and all that kind of stuff. But Trump, when he goes to war with these people, he doesn't try to reestablish like the divisions of power, the Republican rule of law. He just tries to use nepotism and cronyism in order to emplace the nepotistic choices and cronies that he wants, who are sympathetic to his agenda. So he's not restoring the republic, he's making it weaker.
Yeah, just becomes
hold
more
on, real quick, very quick,
more corrupt than all of the other people he's supposedly fighting.
Very quick. Number one, interesting things always happen at the ends of the distribution, right? So even if 95% of people are doing their job effectively and are not like overly corrupt in the sense that you mean it, obviously not in the sense that I would look at it, but even if that's true, the 5% matters to an extreme degree, right? Because it's the corrupt people that so for example, like when you want to look at local politicians that are incumbents, how do they win elections? It comes down to two things: snow removal and trash, right? And the reason it's snow removal and trash is because most people are not aware of all of the things that the government are doing. But when the snow removal doesn't happen, or when trash days get all fucked up, and they see the government and they go, the local government is failing me. So like, yes, you can say, even if I buy your 90 to 95% are working well, the 5% being corrupt is a really big deal. And that might seem like drain the swamp, makes it seem like Rob Noah, somebody like wants to get rid of all of it, etc. Like if 5% of the FBI, for example, is corrupt, then like it's like, well, you have to get rid of that 5%. It's extremely crucial that you get rid of that 5%. And sometimes that requires getting rid of an entire structure so that you can do that. But the more important thing is I asked you about optics and how optics don't matter. And your response was, well, Trump is the reason I'm so against Trump is that he is, to paraphrase here, he is completely unaware of the abilities that he has as president and is willing to overstep tons of bounds in that domain. And I don't see how that is substantively different in terms of like this level of incompetence than the Biden administration, when your claim is that the Biden administration is status quo in the sense that he doesn't do anything and he has all of these handlers that are able to exercise their authority. And yet the example that you gave is something that didn't happen because Trump's people that were around him informed him that this was incorrect. So I still fail to see where you're demarcating anything that makes Trump bad. And instead your actual arguments seem more pro-Trump. You're just, at the end of the day, you're saying, I don't care about the optics, but it sounds like you fucking do.
Well, hold on. So you're actually giving me an argument that I got from Phil Labonte. So don't know if you guys are familiar, but he's like a Timcast guy, and he sings for All That Remains. And what he was saying is he would prefer to have a competent Trump who's reined in by his advisors and the Constitution and the courts and all that kind of stuff over Biden with his pudding brain, right? Now, let's just say, I'll try to be as brief as I can be. let's say that the presidents wield a decent amount of power and influence, but the truth is that a healthy chunk of their power is in their cabinets, the people who they appoint in order to be the overseers of federal administration. And there are people who are going to do that for Trump, and there are people who are going to do that for Biden. So with Trump, when it comes to what I would say are close calls with overstepping the federal limits of his authority, these were things that should have been red flags to anybody else, but they were not red flags for Trump. And what I mean by that is 2 weeks until like January 6th and the transfer of power, he was thinking about firing his attorney general and his assistant's attorney general. And even after they said, we will resign and so will half our staff if you go forward with your plans, he still was talking to a low-level administrator in the DOJ who said, I can make it happen. I can find the fraud. I can make you president. I can do this. I can do that. And if you're the kind of person who, like, let's just say in that meeting, Biden wouldn't even care because he was fucking, eating his banana pudding cup in the fucking corner. Trump is so egomaniacal that he listened to the middle manager who said, I can keep you in power, while thinking about firing 2 of the highest guys in his administration who were saying, you are about to make the biggest career fuck up of your life.
But you see, you ascribed motivation there, right? And without
I
evidence
heard
of
it
the
from the
motivation
people who were in
you're
the room.
describing. No, you're describing that he's egomaniacal and that it's all about his desire to maintain power. When we clearly had a really fucked up election.
You guys didn't like it last week when I didn't move the conversation on to the next topic.
Just kidding. I didn't mind it. I don't mind. I don't mind.
Okay.
Also, I fucking hate sports betting, so that's on.
Okay, so
all right, yeah, I'm cool with going to it.
But I did want to, because you did ask Tom like one example where Biden has improved. I wanted to give this answer the entire time, and we don't have to concentrate on it, especially since it's the thing that you literally hate the most.
Well, I asked.
Well, he
Scott,
took out policy.
But I would say the NLRB. Strengthening the NLRB has been amazing from the Biden administration. One of the best things he's done. Labor has hadn't been as powerful, as resurgent as it's been in decades. So
that's a fair one.
It's not
I'll give you that
much, but
yeah, I think of it as evil, obviously, but that's a fair thing that you can attribute as a success.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so let's move on to the other topic. Before we do that, hey everybody, if you enjoyed this, help us out. We're a brand new month, right? Leaderboards reset. Consider supporting the channel if you're out there and haven't done so yet. If you're out there, you don't have a sub, all right, consider subbing to the channel. Gifting bits or gifting subs. If you have Amazon Prime, such Prime Gaming, consider using that on this channel. Free for you, but does a lot for us to get out free viewing. And you'll get our emotes. Thank you to anyone who does support. We do need your help. Consider helping us out. If you're on YouTube, you can also support us the same way there. You can gift subs, become a member. Yeah, gift memberships. That's whatever. They don't. It's fine. But you know what I mean. So help us out and keep this channel alive. I also want to, separately from that, let me say one thing. Okay, all right, this has to happen. I owe an apology. My man Corey. Corey, sorry. I apologize last week for forgetting to invite you. I thought I did. I sent
it. Did happen.
Yeah, I sent an. I thought in my mind I sent an invite. I was like, oh, Corey didn't respond. And then like. I figured out on stream, and I apologize, friend. You're an important part of this, platform, so I appreciate you. I don't want you to think I think less of you or something.
Oh no! Can I briefly respond or rebut? Well, first of all, I appreciate the apology, although totally, not necessarily. At the end of the day, I view this as like a huge privilege, and I'm always honored to be here. I'm grateful to be here. And also, what I would say in your defense. You're clearly a genius. You were playing 5D chess because you have the ultimate out. where this was clearly revenge on pretty much me always taking you to task for the delays in reading donations. So this was just a delay in the invitation, just delayed by a week, just standard Prime. So just 5D chess all the way.
5D chess, indeed. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. And I want the audience to know that you're number one. So let me give you the seat of power here, right?
I beat Lactoid in rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, like I want everyone to know.
Wait, I won that.
I want everyone to know that you're number one. And in fact, right, let's make it clear, right? Corey is our number one Canadian.
His name was Corey
right?
Campbell. He was number one.
He's our number one Canadian, and so no one gets that mixed up. But yeah, sorry about that, Corey. Like,
oh no, I know you were just protecting Lactoid, like for the leg check. Can we get a leg check on Lactoid?
This is lawfare. This is lawfare by the Democrats once again.
But okay, so let's get into the discussion. The topic. It's been like 3 weeks since I came up with this one, but in 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized sports betting across most of the country. Since then, we've had an explosion of gambling due to sites like FanDuel and DraftKings, making online betting extremely easy and convenient. The constant ads during sporting events continue to entice new users with the fantasy of easy money. But this has also come with a predictable explosion in gambling addictions, along with its economic fallout. Some are calling it a public health crisis. Should sports gambling be allowed? Would it be best to at least limit easy access to betting through mobile apps? If you aren't inclined to regulate gambling, do you think society should do anything to help addicts at all? So, I mean, if you have all existed on the internet, or especially like on ESPN, if you're the type to look at anything sports related, then you're familiar with FanDuel and DraftKings, and I'm sure there are other sites as well for sports betting, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Basically, I'm looking at what should society think about this. Should this is just a legitimate business that we should allow to flourish, or can we say this is a threat to the public in some way, and that we should take action, or is there a middle ground here? So we'll go down the line. We'll start with Corey, number one, making it clear. All right, very much appreciated, Corey. Please.
Yeah, this one. So not to make the one-to-one comparison. So I view this sort of like, let's say, drugs or illicit drugs currently, where I don't think anybody should be in prison for consuming any sort of substance, really. But I think there's clearly a problem in terms of, I don't want people to become addicted or, have their lives ruined, their families ruined as a result of, substance use disorder. And so I think there's an issue there with, like, gambling as well, in terms of, people should be free to do what they want. And if they want to gamble, they should be allowed to gamble, do whatever they want with their money. But at the same time, like, there's some clear issues in terms of, people have issues with, whatever, compulsive behavior and gambling, whether it's a true addiction. I'll leave that up to the experts. So ultimately what the solution is, for me, where I'm at currently, is I view it just as pretty much just like with substance use disorder with drugs, like, it's a medical problem. Like, no one should be in prison for substance use disorder or abuse, but they should get in my opinion, the free medical care to address, whatever it is that they're going through. I think the same thing holds true with if they have some sort of compulsive gambling addiction that's ruining their lives or their family's lives. They should have access to the medical care to address that. And I guess I would go this step further. That should probably, maybe I lean towards probably banning advertising for it, or some sort of banning on advertising for it. And that's where I'm at currently. Leave it there for now.
Thank you so much, Scott.
So first and foremost, I want to say that gambling addiction is real. That we as a society have a issue. We as humans, I don't want to say society. We as humans have an issue with heuristics, and heuristics work most of the time, and they're helpful a majority of the time. And that's how humans have to be. Humans can't know everything. They use these kind of information available to them to determine whether or not things are good or bad, or whether or not they should talk to someone, or, you know, et cetera, to get through life. And one of the issues with gambling addiction is that it tricks our heuristics, right? When we see someone that is a heroin addict and we see them nodding out, right? There's these visible health and physical signs that occur that aren't necessarily available when you see someone that is a gambling addict, right? They're not high on the gambling right now. Now, obviously, someone that is a gambling addict, you might see them step away from their Thanksgiving dinner to constantly check and stress. Like, there are still things there. And gambling addiction can ruin people's lives. Ought there be regulation? Obviously, no surprise here that I'm against all regulation against it. But I also want to challenge this idea that this is this net negative for everyone. I think that gambling is absolutely has positive things that are good for society. One of the main reasons that the economy has boomed after the Industrial Revolution with information has been the ability to utilize intelligent people, people with skin in the game and information on of all forms of the market, right? So, for example, farmers are able to produce more crops because people buy futures on farms, right? Hedge funds, Vanguard, Blackguard, all these people, what they will do is they will go to farmers and say, hey, I'm betting that corn is actually going to be higher than you think next year. And the farmer knows when they plant that they have no idea what corn is going to be valued at during the harvest. But they say, I promise to pay you $800 per whatever, right? And so they're able to invest more of their money without fear of losing money because someone somewhere is gambling on the fact that they have more knowledge and information about the market. And one of the things that we have seen with the rise of online gambling that includes sports betting is we have seen betting on all kinds of things beyond just sports, betting on whether or not the president, who's going to be president, betting on what debate is going to occur, betting on whether or not a war starts somewhere. And this has been able to take those that have the most knowledge and expertise in an area, put money on a side that they think will win or an outcome, and has given us an ability to predict the future because those with the most knowledge have been able to place actual money, so they're more invested, and with that usually comes competence. So I do think that there are negative consequences to trying restricting that market because that money will go elsewhere, and what it will actually do is get rid of predictive power that exists from experts in every field of the world, and limit information as we move forward, and that is a bad thing. So yeah, you know, we should look out for gambling addiction. We should help those people. We shouldn't be using government resources. And I think apps should develop technologies, especially with artificial intelligence, to determine people that they think might have a gambling addiction and preemptively ban those people. So that when they sell that product to the public, they can say, hey, look, we don't cause the same gambling addiction problems that other apps do. And that should be a net positive for people that have a fear that they might become a gambling addict that keeps them from gambling in some regard. But overall, no, there should be no restrictions. And I don't think that it's actually as bad as people think it is, and that there actually is net positive outcomes from sports betting for society as a whole as we move into the future.
Thank you so much. Counterpoints. So Counterpoints, thank you for being so kind as to give 5 Hot 2 1 gift subs to the channel, supporting this community. Really, really nice of you, friend. But yeah, go ahead.
My pleasure. So yeah, support Prime. He brings us together every so often in order to have fun and yell at each other and all that kind of stuff. In reference to this topic, my position is really simple and completely contradictory. I vacillate between libertarian and Christian nationalism depending on what I see on Twitter. Early in the day, I'm like, holy shit, you pieces of shit need to be stomped back into, the ground, and you need somebody with like morality to force you to act like normal fucking human beings. That's how I feel about at 9:30 a.m. And then probably around like, I don't know, 4:55 p.m. when I'm like logging out of my job, I'm like, fuck you motherfuckers. I'm gonna go live in the mountains by myself. Y'all have fun going to hell in a handbasket. And I'm just gonna go do my own thing. And I'm gonna carve out my own little paradise in the universe and just let you all kill yourselves. So yeah, so I'm either hyper libertarian or hyper authoritarian, depending on how much caffeine I've had and how much Twitter I've consumed.
So much. All right, let's go to our friend Ali.
What about sports betting?
I will either ban it from a Christian theocratic perspective at 9 a.m. or I'll say all the people who lose the house on sports betting by 4:55 p.m. fucking deserve it, and they should suck a dick for skill issues.
Ali.
I remember like 10 years ago, there was this fucking commercial on TV, and it was a family, and they were sitting around a hobo fire, and it was a little daughter, and she's like, "Well, my family lost, my daddy lost our house to online gambling, and we had a whole petition to ban online gambling." You know, I don't know where the fuck that went, and yeah, I think it's crazy that we just allow somebody to open up essentially an online casino and just goes, "Hey, give me all your money," and we're just like, okay with it. Yeah, I think that's weird. I think that's strange. I don't think that's a business, because it's not a business that anyone can just open, right? You have to be like, so you can't just open a casino, and setting up like gambling rigs, like you can have backyard poker that are like big game amounts, because that's also illegal. So I don't get, that's weird that there's like this privilege of someone can open up a casino, I can't, and then somehow we're just fucking over all these people. And I do think it's a pretty big problem, Scott. I don't get how you don't think online gambling isn't a big problem. I don't see how it is an issue, but yeah, let's move on.
Okay. Let's go to our friend Gibbs.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with sports betting. First of all, let me tell you one thing. Anybody that does have a problem with sports betting, I don't have any sympathy for these weak-willed individuals who lost their money because of their weak genetics and their limp dicks. Oh no, I lost the house's money. Tough titties, not my problem. Should we help these people? No, fuck them. I don't give a shit. I don't have any sympathy for them. I'm sorry they made bad bets. In fact, I got a brand new truck a couple months ago. You know how I did it? I made 40 grand on sports betting. Since 2009, I'm up 123K on sports betting. It's not hard to win. You want a good website to use, folks? Here's how you do it. You go to bestfightodds.com right now. They have 5 different websites you can register for. You pick the best odds from each one, hence the name, Best Fight, and you pick that for each fight. And guess what? Then you pick one outlier that's like 8-1, and if you hit that, you'll make a bunch of money. If you don't hit that one, you'll make $50. Just don't go bet your fucking mortgage payment on the fucking shit. It's not that complicated. You have to be retarded to lose at sports betting. The only way you lose at sports betting is if you're just over here betting on your nutsack. There's a reason I don't bet on college football, because I think that like I get passionate about certain teams and I don't bet. So I have zero sympathy. In fact, they should be paying us extra to listen to them bitch about their fucking sports betting addiction. I don't have any crying. I don't cry one tear about them. Good. I don't have it. Good. Let them. I'm glad they lost their money. I'm glad little Susie is fucking homeless because her daddy's a degenerate bum who can't be smart enough to figure out that shit. Good. Good. I'm happy.
I love Gibbs so much. He tickles me.
Promo code Gibbs, by the way.
All kinds of places. Promo code Gibbs. Let's go to Tomboy.
Yeah, I have like I also like kind of waffle on this a little bit, because I do feel like I feel like the things that the gambling websites are doing is pretty much similar to any other social media website, where they're trying to find ways to keep you engaged and to keep you on their apps and to keep you working with their working within their system, but the fact that there is like a lot more money involved and that you can win money back. So like, just like any video game where you have to like pay for points and shit to keep playing Candy Crush, it's a little bit different, where on these apps, you have this hope of recuperating your money plus more every single time. That kind of changes the interaction. The DSM-5 has gambling disorder placed as a behavioral addiction, and it has some compulsive aspects to it that are going to fall into mental disorders. So where Gibbs is sitting here saying that they would have to be retarded to overpay, or he's glad they lost their money, these are literal like mental disorders and problems that like people go through, similar to heroin or to other drug addictions that are compulsive in the ways that they interact in these areas. I think I saw a study earlier saying something like 50% of people who live in New Jersey are overpaying on sports apps sports betting apps more than they can actually afford. And at that point, yeah, it seems to be a like a massive problem when you're actually spending more than you're capable of affording.
Thank you. And next we'll go to our number 2, Canadian, distant number 2, Canadian, lastly. Emphasize on lastly. There you go. Back to White.
So, in thinking about how to answer this question, because I've had a grand old time with some Greek wine and some Greek olives, I was considering going the Gibbs route, but he beat me to it. You know, the only problem with gambling is you haven't gambled enough. Yeah, sure. Have you guys ever heard of somebody named Bossman Jack? You guys ever heard of that guy? Okay. So, this is not this guy, but there was this, I forget his name. There was this famous social psychologist who basically wrote the playbook for casinos and how to make money consistently. And the playbook essentially tells casinos, you don't put clocks in your casino because you don't want people looking at the time.
Well, no shit.
You don't put windows because you don't want the sun going up and sun coming down to alert them to the fact that they're spending that much time there. You don't play songs because if you play songs, the beginning and end of songs can alert them to how much time they've spent. And so you just play a sort of nondescript constant theme. So they never really know how much time they're spending there. And I began to realize that because gambling very much is taking advantage of people with very, very, very small frontal cortexes. That's the whole point, right? You find people who have very poor judgment and you extract every fucking penny you can pull from their stupid hands. And it's incredibly profitable. You can make a fuck ton of money pulling money from these people who simply can't think for themselves. And there's a lot of people who simply can't think for themselves. And you make a fuck ton of money doing it. And part of me, there's part of me which is like, that's pretty manipulative. Holy shit. You're literally designing everything, including the online shit, designing everything, including the sports betting shit, to attract the people with the worst judgment and to pull as much money as you possibly can from them and leave them destitute. But at the same time, they are making this choice. And do they really deserve that money if they're that stupid to begin with?
Jesus.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it could probably be better served in the hands of people who could spend it better than these people.
You stupid asshole. This is why there's fucking perverse incentives
and
negative consequences, and then the state has to step in.
Opening, I believe.
And at my opening, it's my opening counterpoints. And look, do we really want fools walking around with all this money? I don't know. What else are they going to waste it on? Probably bad shit.
The money.
The money that they lose is now money that's not being spent on heroin or alcohol or what cell phone bills, whatever bullshit these people buy. Right?
Job
like it is being
FedEx office.
It's being given to the Ubermensch. It's given to the people who can spend it better.
That's right.
Like Gibbs. And I think it's true. And so, going back to what I said before, this guy named Bossman Jack, you should look him up. He's an example of people who are addicted to this online gambling and sports betting, etc. And they exist, and they're just the same people that you see at the casino, and they deserve it, and it's okay.
Well, let's go to
lead them.
Corey Gibbs. I think Counterpoints wants to yell at the world, and then we go from there.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be pedantic. So I think you made a claim, Lactoid, about frontal cortex size and gambling. Do you have any evidence to back that up?
It's intuitively true.
Okay,
which makes it obvious. But I can Google it, and I'm gonna be right.
Okay. And then to follow up on that, I think you mentioned that you're drinking
motorcyclists.
No, I think you're drinking Greek wine, right? What do you think the correlation is between alcohol consumption and size of the frontal cortex and the effect of alcohol on your
I bet you, no, I bet you people who drink wine are smarter because wine is the rich man's drink.
Really?
What?
Same is probably true with gambling, though. That's the problem, is that, like, the type of people that
not gambling addicts. There's a difference.
Sure, but right, but you're still going to see to some degree an increase in wealth with gambling and gambling addicts, right? Because you have to have some money to engage in the activity at all, right? Like you can't be destitute. You have to have some level of money in order to engage. And in order to engage enough to get addicted, you probably have to put in a certain amount of money over a certain period of time. So you're probably going to see a slight increase of IQ and those same things that track with money. So that might conflate your data, because what you'd need to do is you'd need to take a sample of everybody that is gambling in general, right, and gambling addicts, and compare it to those in the same income brackets, right? Because that is there's a cost to
well, the casinos
entry
are filled
into
with
gambling.
old people addicted.
You can do this all you want. I'm just saying, like, I don't think like you might not find studies that show that it's particularly attracting low IQ or frontal cortex development.
I
just because it's also excluding the most impoverished.
Wait, have you just been to a casino?
That has to be controlled for.
No, hold on. First
Bro,
of all,
they're pissing themselves because they don't want to leave the machine.
Yeah, casinos are just filled with old people spending their social security, just sitting at slots hours on end.
And they're shitting themselves right there.
Lot. I think it's a majority of the gamblers in casinos are going to be like...
They are cows that are being milked.
That doesn't go against my argument at all.
That they're higher, that they're going to be skew higher IQ?
The people on the sports apps are also like
largely I'm just explaining basic science that it's a confounding variable.
People that are using these apps.
Yeah, I don't know about any of that. Let me tell y'all something. All right, I don't know if y'all have ever gone out and been at like an after party, but it's inevitable that at some point in the night, after a bunch of lines have been done and a bunch of alcohol has been consumed, that you're going to break out the beer pong table and they're going to start gambling on the beer pong, or you're going to break out the dice and you're going to start losing money on the dice. I've gambled a lot at these places. I play beer pong. I'm like about breaking even on beer pong. At dice, I'm about $6,000 down. Guess what? I don't play anymore. Dice. It's fucking not that hard. If you've lost $6,000,
the average after party has dice going.
Oh well,
down.
I don't know what you're doing, but I mean, I'm going to the fun ones. You're going to the lame ones. I'm just saying, if
I'm
we're
in
over here.
Detroit parties. I'm pretty sure I've got some fun parties going on.
I
need
need
the dice.
Hold on.
Oh, so
gambling is happening at after parties.
But hold on, here's well, I don't know where you're going. Every party I go to has gambling. The point is that, like, if you're gonna go and sit here and tell me, boo-hoo, they can't control themselves. If I'm at a party and I see other degenerates like myself over here gambling on some dice, and hey, this guy just lost $300, and I see that, and then I go and I lose $40, and I go, you know what? I'm going to keep going. That's on me. I don't give a fuck how addicted you are. Fuck that motherfucker. You're an idiot. Stop while you're ahead or stop while you're behind. The same thing with sports betting. It's like, listen, if you're going to sit here and go, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to bet 4 things, and then I'm going to put a parlay on a 6th thing that's not going to happen because I want to bet that someone falls during the national anthem. Oh, you know what? You deserve to have your money taken. I am happy your money got taken, and you're an idiot. And guess what? You know why there's that bet even on there in the first place? Because there's stupid motherfuckers that are going to do it, and guess what? I don't have any sympathy for them. You shouldn't have any sympathy for them. They're the weakest of genetics, and hopefully they lose enough money that they die impoverished and they don't breed. And guess what? Then we're called them because they're stupidity. That's what's the best thing that can
Let's
happen.
go to counterpoints and then Corey.
So Gibbs, for my own edification, can I just ask, like, did you inherit your wealth? Did you make your wealth? Did you buy your first cow?
So I worked all through college. And I bought my first business in 2012. I sold that in 2013. And then I bought my next business in 2015. And I've been doing that since then.
He's an entrepreneur.
Okay. So anyways.
Now I own several businesses.
I'm still vacillating because I just hear like the cheering on of evil. And I'm just like, fuck all of you
evil
plots. No, okay. What's evil?
They deserve it. Counterpoints.
What makes evil to like? What makes morally incompetent people deserve it?
Because they're holding on to money that could be in the hands of better people.
Right.
Okay. And you know what happens? You want to know what happens? Is these people spend their subsistence or subsistence paychecks on gambling. Then the state has to come in and bail them the fuck out.
Yeah, that's why I said
and
let
then
them die.
cunts like you complain about how high your fucking taxes are, and it's because you're making absolutely decrepit,
No.
morally
No, the solution is
bankrupt.
not funding
all this money
fucking
comes from
milk.
Social Security checks anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and my solution was
I
stop
hate
giving
you
that welfare
so
to them
much.
anyway. So they shouldn't
Yeah,
get that
I
welfare, and
hate-
they should be able to should have it.
It's all from
I
Social
hate
Security
both of
checks.
you.
That's being paid out of regardless, right?
But yeah, listen, if we didn't give them this
I mean,
welfare,
we
they
could
wouldn't
solve this
spend it at
problem
the
if we just
casino.
stop paying Social Security.
Amen.
Right?
Then
We
they
just
wouldn't
give
give
them
it to
Social
the
Security
casino.
checks.
Killing all
Then we end Vegas right there.
Let's go to Corey then.
Yeah.
So Gibbs, I think the way, if I'm understanding, your words correctly, I think I am. So you seem to be framing it as basically like these gambling addicts, okay? Like they just don't have, the fortitude to like stop gambling. And they just need to, so out of curiosity, I have to assume then that by you being overweight is an intentional choice. Like that is your conscious intentional choice.
It is absolutely an intentional choice. I blew out my knee and I hurt my back and my ankles. And guess what? Damn right now. Hold on. Let me finish.
Sound like excuses.
Hold on. I absolutely could go and put myself through the pain and be skinnier. I absolutely could. 100%.
Or you could,
I choose not to.
You could put the food down easily.
I could do that, but I don't want
many
to,
people.
so I don't do it. That's exactly. It's absolutely a choice.
But he's not in Canada.
I'm not.
Gibbs isn't in Canada. You don't get free health care here, okay? He's not asking for a fucking paycheck. If he wants to ruin his own fucking body and he has to pay for it, he's going to pay for it from all the money he makes from gambling.
That's the point. No, you're absolutely correct, Corey. I hurt myself, right, playing sports.
Those are excuses.
Those are excuses. Let me finish. I hurt myself, and I absolutely could still go do it, but I would rather be like, hey, you know what I'm going to do today? Instead of fucking working out, I'm going to eat this fucking cheeseburger and drink this fucking sweet tea and then do a couple shots of tequila and rail that line of cocaine. And I'm not going to fucking go do it because I have the insurance to pay for it.
Are you like 40-something? Are you going to fucking die in your 50s?
I hope so. That'll be all right.
I just want to clarify, you being injured has nothing to do with you.
No,
you
it's
could
a choice.
lose
Cheeseburgers and cocaine. Are you in your late 30s or early 40s?
Yeah, I'm in my early 30s. We're gonna be all right.
Bro, are you gonna live? I think you're gonna live to be like 49 or some shit.
That's fine with me. Live fast, die hard. It'll be all right.
Let's go to our friend Tom.
Damn, can you put me in your will? Fuck.
Yeah,
hey, here's the best part. The government's not going to have to fucking keep me alive because I pay for all my shit. So, like, that's the difference. I'm not asking for a handout as I make these poor decisions. I am actively working hard enough to pay for my poor decisions and not fucking suckle on the teat of every other American taxpayer.
Yeah, it sounds like the people who are like, I go to parties and I do drugs sometimes, so I don't know why there's drug addicts. Lactoid is sitting over here literally naming all of the reasons, like what and how like casinos will take away your agency and take away your ability to like make decisions by like blacking things out, making it to where you can't keep track of time, you don't know how long you're being there. And then he says at the end, so yeah, they're just making the decision themselves. They're just doing it.
Milk them.
But they're like, you're making it to where like they're not actually having as many options because you're trying to limit them on the options they have by like hiding as much as possible.
It's like Mad Max.
They are stupid.
It's that like, yeah, it does it like this is like saying like, dude, I don't know why there's fucking homeless people with schizophrenia on the streets. They should just choose not to be homeless, man. Just stop having schizophrenia, motherfuckers. Like these are people who are like
those are disanalogies, obviously.
These are people who are struggling with mental illnesses from issues that they have, and lots of them can come from like, issues from when they were younger. Lots of them can come from like things that they were raised into from when they were, from their parents. They can come from all sorts of other things and end up in these scenarios. But the point is that like once they get to a certain point, they kind of start to have compulsions to where they're not even thinking about making the decision. This is what a compulsion is, right? It's that you're not thinking about making a decision, you're just doing something.
This is where I'm literally stuck between both of y'all because I hate Gibbs and hate Lactoid for literally laughing while fucking people are getting milked to death because they're too stupid to fucking help themselves. But then I also hate your perspective that it's just like, oh, they have trauma, so they can just fucking do whatever, and it's okay
I'm not saying
because they have fucking
everybody.
compulsions. Hold on.
Everybody.
So here's my thing. Like what I find, and I'm not saying you, by the way, I'm just saying generally. Like what I find is oftentimes the left wing will excuse the word, like libertarians will say, fuck them, skill issue, they should die in the street. And then lefties will say, well, they have trauma, and then they'll come up with excuses for why they're fucked up. And I'll just tell you, compulsions and addictions are a real thing. I know that you struggled with addiction and overcame it, through various means. I dealt with cigarettes. There's some studies that say that quitting cigarettes is one of the hardest fucking things that you can do. It took 3 to 4 times, but I haven't had a cigarette in a fucking decade. And I still miss it. I love it. It was my original fucking heroin. So my point is that like compulsions can be overcome, but it takes intention and will. And so robbing these people of their agency completely, I think that Lactoid and Admiral Gibbs are evil for laughing at these people while they ruin their lives.
I'm not laughing. I'm just talking a matter-of-fact way.
You're being Darwinian. And then I think there's a certain evil that comes from indulging people's compulsion.
Yeah, but I'm not taking away their entire agency. But the problem is that, like, yes, you had like to take 4 different times to try to quit, and this is something that people ask me all the time. It's like, well, how do we actually get these people to stop doing drugs, or how do we get them to stop with their addiction? There's literally nothing you can do. There just has to be something.
They have to want to.
Yes, they have to just keep trying. Eventually, it'll actually work, but they just have to keep trying to quit. And there's lots of people who try to quit their entire lives, and it just never works out, and then eventually it's too late. But you eventually got to a point where it worked on the 4th time, and that 4th time was the time that it actually mattered. It wasn't that all the other times you didn't want to quit. It wasn't that you weren't making the decision all the other times. You wanted to quit all the other times.
Well,
it doesn't work that way because it's a compulsion.
No, what kind of, but here's the thing is like, I had to tell myself a story. And the story was that if I continue down this path, I am going to die eventually from COPD. And the way that people die with COPD is they burst the cells inside their lungs so they can't breathe anymore. And then eventually their lungs fill with liquid and they drown inside their own chest. And I don't care if I'm 30 or if I'm 80, that's not the way that I want to go, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had to tell myself that story over and over again until eventually I quit. My issue though with this is that like you're talking about the people who are unable to quit, and this almost the way that you're phrasing it almost feels.
I'm not saying unable.
Well, hold on. So I want to be specific here, which is that like people often know what the right thing is, but they literally don't want to succeed. They don't want to make the choice. They want to have the excuses. They want to continue to indulge, and this is why I vacillate in my opinions, because literally I think that if I was God Emperor of the United States of America, I would prohibit this practice. And if people said that they wanted to gamble, you can gamble with your friends. You can bet whatever fucking money you want to in like friendly side games or whatever. But there will be no formal institution inside the United States of America that will take your money and profit off of your fucking potential misery.
That's why I said I struggle with this as well, because I do gamble and I like gambling and I enjoy it. But I also understand that there are like aspects to it that are not just simply, oh, people just make these decisions. It's a lot more complicated than that. And addiction is a lot more complicated than that. And I know that you dealt with cigarettes, but it's nowhere similar to like something like, heroin or something like that. And neither is gambling. These are all very different types of addictions and compulsions.
But there's also Connor, said for like, just don't do it
blame,
in the first.
So do you blame the hawk when it swoops down on the rabbit?
No, because he's hungry.
He's got hawk brain, basically what he's saying.
So you're saying there's 2 classes of human beings. Some are predators and some are prey, and it's the predator's right to prey on the prey?
No, I'm just saying that like
you're a predator.
When you look at the hawk swooping,
of the prey,
it's what it does. What it does. Look, the hawk is just doing what it does.
What about minors? What's the limits?
Whoa! I'm prohibit kids from gambling. I'm fine with that.
Why?
But when it comes to adults, right? When it comes to adults,
what if they're like 17 and 365 days?
Yeah, why?
I'm not going to comment on the most recent. I'm not going to comment on the Dr. Disrespect controversy. Okay, I'm going to leave that up to you guys.
Why? But, I'm mostly trying to mean, but still.
But it's fine. It's fine. But like, to some extent, like, in all seriousness, I understand what the point you guys are making, that like this is weaponizing our limbic systems against us, and that's a problem. But like on a serious note, isn't it sort of the case that our economy has a natural, I guess, trend to allocate resources towards the competent and to disenfranchise resources from the less competent? And that isn't this
level of like material well-being that is not violative?
But like, so you could argue then that like, yeah, everybody should get some kind of base level, but that doesn't necessarily get you away from gambling.
Yeah.
Right.
No. So yeah. So for instance, like let's say that there was like a UBI, and the UBI was guaranteed. Let's say that let's say we have like $2,000 a month in UBI, right? And you, as a citizen of the United States, can elect to have your UBI allocated to guaranteed living expenses. Like you have guaranteed housing and you have guaranteed food. But then you can also elect to not have your UBI distributed that way. And then people make the choice to use their UBI in order to gamble. Some people succeed and some people fail. Well, at that point, we've made the system as simple as we possibly can be, and we, relatively speaking, have a just system. On you, that's a moral fucking failing. But when we have like no guaranteed security, and we also have a whole bunch of retarded people, I don't know what to do.
There's
and I
so
don't
much guaranteed security in this country.
Well, I don't want to permit your evil because it seems like you're having too good of a time.
There is so much guaranteed security in this country.
So hold on. Okay. I think my position is closer to probably Corey's, I guess. In that, I want people to be able to do what they want, right? I want people to have freedom. And I think it's best when we do allow people to, like take risk and, to lose. And okay. And I don't want the government certainly criminalizing the gamblers. But I think regulations, first of all, are good. So that's the difference between me and some other people here. I think regulations are absolutely good. I think we should, for instance, regulate casinos to have a minimum amount of funds for payouts, right? It's a pretty good idea. We should do that. That's like a minimum thing we should do.
Well, they can just print money right now, so.
So that's just like
problem solved.
Okay. So anyway, I think we should have some regulations. However, I know I can't make the empathy argument for you guys, especially for Gibbs. These made that very clear over many weeks, right? But at the very least, we live in a society, right? We live in society, and those people interact with you. So even if you get rid of the Social Security administration, right? If you take away all those safety nets, and then you still leave the gambling, one, you're gonna have more people gambling. I don't think you have less. You'll have more people gambling because people are fucking desperate. Like our friend Tom was saying before, a lot of these casinos are filled with desperate people.
Well, they'd be better off if you got rid of Social Security. People would be financially better off.
Okay,
we'd all be swimming in.
They would have no money to start the gambling addiction to begin with.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, sure. So they're desperate.
Well, no, they'd have more money.
People
would have more money if you got rid of
Social
Social
Security.
Security.
Let me finish. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love you all so much. But the problem here is that when you immiserate individuals economically, one way or the other, they don't disappear. They don't just die in the streets when their bank accounts go to negative, even though I won't give.
Well, they eventually do. They eventually do.
Yeah. But before
ideally.
But before then, what they'll do is they'll rob individuals here, right? They'll attack you in the streets. They'll commit other types.
That'll be the last person they rob.
Yeah. Maybe they'll get their hands on a gun, and then you have to have a gun battle with them. Okay, so maybe
poverty doesn't cause crime.
Yeah. So if we have a world where we are connected with others, right? I think for our own self-interest, we should take we want others to have a minimum amount of or at the very least, not even minimum, because I can't even say that to you guys because I know what this group is.
Water and bread.
What you don't want them to be taken advantage of to the point where they become like a liability, right? By that liability, not because they're taking money from the government, because they try to take money from you. since we live in a society, right? Now you can the option, I know some of you, it's just like, oh, just be armed, right? And I just have like regular gun battles with the people around you. Sure, I guess you could do that. You could. Or the other option is
survival of the fittest, social Darwinism.
Yeah.
Literally,
okay,
like,
whatever.
you guys are joking about it, but that's the end result.
Yeah, I don't want people to be desperate. Like, I think that just makes our
Society worse.
So like heroin addicts, I wouldn't jail heroin addicts, right? Well, I'd put some sort of pressure on them, but at the very least, I'd be going after the heroin providers, right? If anyone going after, I'd be going after heroin provider, or I'd be regulating that heroin. And for the heroin addicts, I'd realize these people need help, so let's give them.
Let me ask you a question. At what point do you want people to take accountability?
Let me get them on their feet, because society is better when they're functional. When everyone is functional around you and doing well, or okay at the very least, right? Things work better for you. They'll go to Gibbs. They'll buy his goods and services, whatever. I still don't know his business is, but like whatever it is, he would like he'd have more customers, and he'd have less people trying to rob his business. So let's like do that. Let's have a better society. Go ahead.
Let me step in here because I haven't spoken since the opening on this.
Yeah.
So I will reiterate again that like I am not in the vein of Lactoid or Admiral Gibbs, in that like fuck these people, I hate them, right? Or that these people are like useless to society in some way. What I will say is that gambling addiction is real, and addiction, much like many other things, gambling addiction, much like other forms of addiction, are not there because a drug exists. They're there because they have trauma, they have past issues, they lack mental resilience, not necessarily IQ, but certainly, you know, there's an unknown factor of mental resilience. Some people can go through all kinds of shit and they seem fairly functional and fine. And then same people that are like their brother or sister under the same relatively similar circumstances, you know, end up on the street. And it's a breakdown of family, connections, meaning in their life, things of that nature. And then a vice calls to them, and that vice can ruin their lives. But there's a bunch of other problems here. So first and foremost, making something illegal, prohibition, what does it actually do? Well, it drives these things into the underground. People that, you know, obviously if it's more available, more people discover it, and therefore you do get an net increase overall of addicts in general, right? You know, if alcohol was illegal, there'd be less alcoholics, right? But the most extreme alcoholics would likely have been alcoholics no matter what. And it's the same as going to be true of gambling, right? You're going to have increase in gambling addicts as gambling becomes more popular. But there are some economic myths here that are the reason that there's so many failures in the way that we're discussing these things. So first and foremost, when discussing things like Social Security and welfare and this need that we have to sacrifice as a society because these people will be a net negative if they don't have these services available to them. Well, first of all, as Admiral Gibbs and Lactoid have kind of pointed out very much so, you fuck them in a certain way, but not because I think that these are like bad people or whatever, but what I mean when I say fuck them is that you don't get to steal from one other person, make someone else's life worse, let someone else's paycheck be decreased because someone else is suffering when they don't value it. And so let's look at welfare. And the thing is that roughly, depending upon how you break the numbers down and depending upon year to year, somewhere between 70 to 77% of the entire U.S. federal budget is welfare. Or it is interest on the debt that is constantly growing because of welfare. Recently, interest on the debt has just surpassed military spending in a country, the United States, which has an astronomically high military budget. It is so much money that comes out of your paycheck and also comes out of the employer's paycheck that you don't see taken out of your paycheck because they have to have unemployment insurance, because they have to match many of your benefits and taxes that you're paying. Massive amounts of money are taken from their most valued means, which is where they are most effective to economic growth, where innovation, technology, all of the things that reduce the cost of labor, all of the things that make us wealthier as a nation, and they're then put into less valued means. So if you want to talk about how we're going to solve this problem, how we're going to help these people, and your solution is degrowth. That's essentially what your solution is. Your solution is less economic growth, less innovation, lower wages for everyone, lower growth in the innovations that give us more wealth so that we can solve this problem. You end up in this never-ending cycle of battling for more socialism that doesn't actually get rid of the crux of the problem. It only lowers the percentage of the problem, but it's not compared to what it is that you're taking from. You are taking from the wealth of our children. You are taking from the wealth of those living now. You are taking away innovation. You are taking away high wages. You are taking away middle-class America's ability to grow and own a home so that you can help gambling addicts. And lastly, I'll state that the more you restrict gambling, the more you create a barrier to entry into companies that can create gambling, the more the perverse incentive structure is to make gambling worse. And the reason is twofold. Number one, when you limit competition in the market, you increase prices. And when you increase prices, that means that less people can strike it rich and that those that lose grow because the house needs to make money and the prices go up. And the second thing is that you incentivize the very companies that work in this industry to lobby Congress, lobby their representatives to do all kinds of evil shit. If you deregulate and you open up this market, what you will find is that more people can strike it rich on gambling, that the gambling problem will get worse. And also, third, so I forgot this one, but third, when you have a system where you constantly call for the government to solve problems, what occurs is you shift the moral responsibility off of... Oh, okay.
Take care, be well.
It's a little early, but fair enough, brother. You shift the moral responsibility from the consumer and the producer of the product to the state. And so what ends up happening is you have a perverse incentive structure from a moral position where people don't choose Fandango versus DraftKings because DraftKings or Fandango, whichever one, or, another one at the time has, like I stated in my opening, AI or things to find gambling addicts, and we want to reduce those things. Instead, they're not incentivized to do that because everyone goes, well, this is the government's responsibility. And what you get is ineffective regulation that costs us even more money and is less effective of actually stopping the problem. We need to care. We should care. Addiction is bad and it ruins families, but you don't then use that care to demand sacrifices from me and from my children. Fuck you.
Here's the thing, just to piggyback off this, and this kind of in response to Prime, what he said. This is the issue I've had over the last few months here. And this is nobody's been able to give this answer to me yet. I haven't found one person here who's given me maybe someone's answer, but it hadn't been an acceptable answer. That's for damn sure. This is the problem I have with all of what y'all are talking about. Whenever we talk about the welfare, we talk about helping the gambling kids, all this bullshit. Let me tell you, there's one word that really sums up why I don't fucking care about all these people. It's called self-accountability. The idea that I'm accountable for anybody other than me, and that the government's going to make me accountable for me is disgusting. And then the idea that these people shouldn't be held accountable for their own fucking actions, and that somehow they have the right to my money after I worked my ass off to earn it, and that I should just pay for the shit because we live in a society. Fuck that. That is disgusting. That is immoral. And I almost can't think of anything more immoral outside of grape and murder. That's really what
Congratulations, you're an ANCAP. Taxation is theft.
Oh, but don't worry. I've been pretty close.
Go kill yourselves.
Hold on. I'm not quite an ANCAP because I believe in a different form of capitalism. But sure, it is disgusting that we're going to sit here and argue that this is some kind of moral imperative to pay for their welfare, to pay for these gambling addicts that are too stupid to figure out that if you lost $6,000 on dice, maybe I should stop.
Okay. Hold on. I can only take up so much fucking psychic damage at one time.
Taxes are bad.
Yeah, I mean,
shut the fuck up.
For the most part.
All right. Anyways, because I, pay attention to like history and life and sociology and all this kind of shit. All this shit should be evident to anybody who isn't a retarded libertarian, but I'll go ahead and explain it to you anyways, okay? So what happens is you are not born alone, okay? You are born to parents. There are doctors who take you out. There are nurses that take you out. 70% of the population is productive. They work every single day. And basically, you're tired, you're overworked, you've worked a lot in order to get it. Congratulations, buddy. That's 70 to 80% of the fucking population. And a substantive amount of the people who don't work are children or the elderly. The places that we put all of our fucking welfare is substantively towards the children and the fucking elderly. And on top of that, you were a child once, and everybody wiped the boogers off of your fucking nose and wiped your fucking ass when you were a fucking baby. And one day you're going to be old and you're going to be just as fucking senile as Joe Biden is. And they're going to fucking wipe your ass again. And they're going to clean up your fucking snot. And they're
then we'll be president.
You all live, all of you fucking F-slurs live in a society. And as a result,
game month is just over.
30%, 10 to 30%, depending on how rich you are in society, depending on how well you've been enabled to succeed amongst your peers, will be taken from your fucking paycheck and it will be paid towards people who cannot provide for themselves. Now, here's where I agree with you, okay? Here's where I agree with you. Some of these people fucking suck and they don't deserve the help they get. Okay, I agree with you there. But what I would like to do is design a society that optimizes the amount of productive, healthy, happy human beings we have as a collective. And then as a result, we can all share in PlayStation 10s and Xboxes. And
just like John Lennon's Imagine.
A military industrial complex. Yeah, except for I'm racist
Kumbaya.
and sexist. I'm racist and sexist, and I love the military industrial complex. Well,
so
tell me
quick,
your race. I'll tell you what I hate about
it. So to respond to counterpoints, none of what you said is against anything that I stated. Right? There's a fact that unproductive. The fact that there are unproductive members of society is not an argument against Social Security. It just isn't. Right? I mean, when you look at the numbers, what do you see? You see that if those people had invested that money on their own, they would be astronomically more wealthy than when they get Social Security
They'll
payments.
Gamble.
Right. Their decisions, right, would lead them in a bad place. So what is it that we did before Social Security? Well, what we did is we had large families.
We lived in squalor.
Right? We had large
died
families.
Of cholera.
No.
And rubella.
This is ridiculous.
Please connect cholera to Social Security in any substantive
so the time period.
Go ahead.
So the time period that you're talking about, the American 19th century, when we had large extended families, what people were doing is they were living in tenement housing where they were living 10 people to what is basically a 2-bedroom apartment. And fires happened that killed a fuckload of people, and a shitload of people due to population density died of preventable disease. Also, since there wasn't any Social Security, people would go work for businesses, they would get injured on the jobs, and then they would be told, tough shit, go have your family take care of you, you fucking loser. And that's exactly, by the way,
can you make a fucking argument? You're just saying slop to protect you from the slop you said before. Make an argument.
Before we had Social Security.
Yeah, that's not a fucking argument. That's not an argument.
Sounds like a pretty good utopia.
What I would say is that society was worse before the social safety net. That's my argument.
Yeah, and so they did a study in Germany where they looked at minimum wage, right? And Paul Krugman even recently won a Nobel Prize for a similar study where they proved that increases in minimum wage, that the increases in minimum wage had zero downward pressure on the amount of jobs available in the market. Now that's insane because it makes no logical sense. If you have a price floor where it cannot go below, it is obvious that there is a downward pressure on the amount of jobs in the market. It is just basic logic that must occur because there are jobs that are available that their productivity does not match minimum wage, and therefore if you institute a minimum wage, those jobs cannot exist in the market. So again, what you are doing by engaging in historical analysis is you're making a fallacious argument by saying this time before industrialization had made it to most of the fucking United States was bad, therefore Social Security is good, it does not follow. It's a non sequitur. So give me a fucking argument or accept fucking defeat. I'm better at this than you.
Okay, no, you're not. You assume that you are for reasons I can't properly understand.
The evidence, which is your fallacious bullshit arguments. So make a real one.
So, okay, yeah, so let's make a real fucking argument, which is the fact that the reason why these policies are in the fucking first place in order to mandate basic standards of living when it comes to education, when it comes to the old, when it comes to the destitute, was because of the nightmares of the late 19th and early 20th century and the human fucking misery that was abundant across the industrialized fucking world. So you saying, hey, Connor, you can't cite history for why these fucking policies were enacted, and when I look around I see a much improved society both materially and fucking socially. No, you're fucking wrong, and you just saying no, you're wrong isn't an argument.
Very quickly, I'll address the first point. I'll just address the first point. Education, right? Bringing education to the masses, right? There have been tons and tons of studies about child labor laws being instituted, right, in the hopes that we would increase education rates. And these two things kind of go hand in hand in the American history. And what you find is that child labor laws don't actually have any effect on whether or not people went. And it's great in America because we had states.
Are
so
you
can see the
serious?
laws being done with
Stop.
things.
I don't want to listen to a 2-minute rant. Are you saying that the labor force participation rate between children in the early 19th century or the early 20th century before these laws were instituted and now are the same?
Oh, wait, are you saying that the early 1920s,
I'm saying that it's fallacious,
was like not a golden age? Like, give me a break here. You're just
what I'm saying is that you are making the same fallacious non sequitur argument because you don't have one, and what you can absolutely see is that child labor laws have almost no effect on child labor, and they have almost no effect on the participation rate in education. What actually has the effect is that as as people's wealth grew, people voluntarily stepped their children out of it because people don't actually want to put their children in labor. That by and large, there's one country that is an outlier, and it's China. And the only reason China is an outlier is because the mainland China and cities like Beijing are so radically different. That's the only outlier throughout all of history that is found that once you make about $15,000, people relatively check out.
So what you just said to me, which is so fucking asinine, I would dare you to fucking prove it, is you said that laws don't have an effect. That's what you basically just said. You said that we passed a bunch of laws during the same time that, hold on, well, let me finish. So we passed laws during the time that correlated in which child labor decreased substantively, but it wasn't the laws themselves that actually did it. It's the generated wealth. How? Pray.
It's very simple. Like I said,
how the fuck would you prove that to me?
I said specifically that America is so great at showcasing this because you would have laws in one state that didn't exist in the other state, and you would have and what you would see is that there was no substantive difference in those things when in one state the laws would be enacted and in another state they wouldn't. But what did occur and what was the strong correlation was not the laws themselves, but the wealth that increases. So again, when you use a historical reference to say times were worse when labor was less productive and when the Industrial Revolution had only hit certain places or was only just beginning and the middle class didn't exist, therefore Social Security is good and made things better, is a non sequitur and a fallacious argument.
He's also just wrong historically.
I think you're fucking retarded, and I think that you basically look for stats that line up with your anti-statist narrative, and you can't prove it.
I can prove it. I got it. 1928, whenever we fell, you can go listening. I'm gonna take 5 seconds. That's right. Right. Look, I talk to Lisa anybody all these panels all the time. Give me 5 seconds.
Had his hand up. I will go after you. Will go after Lactoid. I promise. Lactoid and then Gibbs.
Maybe I can reach you, Connor. Let's say I did have a study that demonstrated that for 98% of people, if they, instead of being forced to spend the money in Social Security, they instead put that money into like a 401k or government bonds even. Let's say 401k. Let's say 98% of people would make more money.
Yes, I would compel them legally to go to the 401k.
So that's interesting, right? But you would still pick the system over Social Security, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately they'd make more money.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you then is why, I'm going to say this somewhat indignantly, but it's a real question. Like, who do you think you are to tell someone that they have to spend their money when they're old and decrepit and living like shit, as opposed to choosing to spend their money now when they're younger and have more energy?
I am somebody who has to live in a peer society with them, who is not interested in living in what is effectively Brazil.
Okay. Let's say
Hold on.
let's say we didn't live in a country like Brazil.
Let me tell you. And you can talk as much as you fucking want. Central and South America is filled with, through corruption and grift and unenforceable regulation, it is filled with people who have absolutely fucking nothing, maybe partially due to their own sins, but also likely just through geographic happenstance. And then it's also filled with people who are incredibly fucking wealthy. And I guarantee you that if you gave all of these talking points at cocktail parties in fucking Bogota, you would be wildly fucking popular. But the truth is that these places are fucking shitholes. And the reason why they're shitholes is because the multimillionaires drive in very nice vehicles to private schools with armed security, and they drive past hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who do not have access to clean drinking water. So if the cost of a functioning, healthy, happy society is some level of regulation that takes 10 to 30% of their productive energy and money and redistributes it in such a way that we actually have effective infrastructure, law enforcement, and all the things
we're not even talking about that.
World, then I'm going to do it. And by the way, my evidence, well, I'm just going to finish my thought. My evidence for that is Western fucking goddamn Europe. They are socialist in the ways that Fabian thinks of fucking socialism, and yet you would infinitely prefer to live in fucking Germany than you would fucking Brazil. But
so
sorry,
I'm not
South
trying to
America's
make this
way
like,
more socialist than Eastern Europe, but okay.
Well, it
just
depends.
described socialist hellscape and said socialism.
So,
we can get into grift another
time. The nice parts of South America, like, so for example, Chile, because of some specific events that occurred, really
killed all their brown and black people.
No, that's not quite what happened. But they did shift relatively economically right, and by no surprise, Chile has the strongest economy in South America, and really has since the Pinochet regime. So I take a little bit of issue with your characterization of like why South America is so economically destitute, right? You want to find the most economically destitute areas of South America. Go to Venezuela, go to the places that espouse socialism.
I'm a mixed economy capitalist.
No, I know you are. I know you're not like a leftist, like some people. You just work with them. But what I wanted to I didn't want to go off into this. What I wanted to emphasize is just Social Security specifically, because I think it's important to focus on like one policy at a time sometimes, because I don't want to get caught up like in the full ANCAP thing. I just want to get caught up specifically. You might believe in welfare to some extent. You might believe, well, nobody should starve to death, et cetera, and I understand that. But when we're talking about like retirement savings specifically, if I look out my window sometimes and I see a really nice car driving by, and I see and maybe this makes me an asshole, but I'll see like a really old person driving the fucking sports car, and my initial feeling is not one of, oh, that person's so cool. It's one of sadness. Like, this person has to, what's the term? Compensate for the fact that they're old. They're living out their youth. They're trying to live how they wanted to live in the past, and it's so evident. And it's so sad, and they don't look the way they think they look. And it's, if only they had the ability to, if they had their money back then, maybe they could have lived like this now, or they could have lived like this back then, and they would have fit better. I don't know how to describe it other than that, right? I don't know how to describe it other than why can't we just
respond?
Sure, you can, but like, let's just say like, sure, compromise. They get like some tenement housing. Everybody gets that and some food stamps or whatever bullshit, right? But that's not the case with Social Security. Right now with Social Security, you have like otherwise middle-class people paying in a fuck ton of money and then getting money out when they might not necessarily need that to survive. Why can't they make the decision where 98% of people would make more money? Why can't they make the decision to simply opt out of Social Security?
Because they're not just paying for themselves, and the state is responsible for more than just the individuals. And not only that, responding directly to your example of the rich guy who bought his fucking Maserati too late, I don't give a fuck. People have real fucking problems. Like, they're unable to fucking put groceries on the fucking table. They can barely raise their fucking kids. They're in the hood. They got shitty fucking education. There's old folks. I don't give a flying fuck about some fucking F slur. I really want to say it. Driving a Maserati who missed out on his fucking youth because, poor boo-hoo fucking who, he got taxed at fucking 30% instead of at 10. I don't give a flying fuck. You know who I feel bad for? I feel bad for the fucking 65-year-old who's still bagging fucking groceries at Walmart or at fucking Publix because they have
98% of people would make more money. 98% of people would make more money if they could put them if they could put their Social Security money into 401k. And if they choose not to do that, I don't have the paternalism to force them to do it.
I'm going to let Emma Gibson, please.
You and I
so like, let's just talk about the history lesson that he gave, which was total utter bullshit. First of all, after the Spanish-American War from 1898 to 1928, that's arguably the best the United States has ever done economically, except maybe after the Second World War. So whenever we sit here and we look at these things, guess what? We didn't have any. We didn't have any of these little training wheels, safety net, a little hold your ball sack because we can't let our nuts hang low, welfare systems that counterpoints just fucking advocated for. We didn't have any of that. And he said here, it's your class. Well, I guess my class is middle class or upper middle class. I don't know. But like, I'll tell you what, we had the largest middle class of all time, except for maybe, once again, after the Second World War, from the period of the Spanish-American War ending to the Great Depression, and we didn't have any of the safety nets. So all the things he said are just unequivocally untrue historically.
Great Depression.
Oh yeah, I mean the Great Depression, which was a worldwide
deregulation,
which was a worldwide
market growth until exploded.
There was a whole bunch of other shit that went down along with that. It is
That's
a lie.
He's
absolutely lying.
Sure, it's just the government that caused it, Fabian. Can you indulge me in another fucking 12-minute rant about how just eliminating the state completely?
What you're doing, Connor,
I'll give you a 12-second rant. I'll give you a 12-second rant. I'll give you a 12-second rant. I'll give you a 12-second rant.
Hold on, I'm going to be done in 5 seconds.
I'll give you a 12-second rant.
I'll be done in 2 seconds. I'll be done in 5 seconds. Here's what's happening right now. It's not that we can't disprove his point historically. It's that he doesn't like the evidence, and he's choosing not to accept the facts.
Yeah, because your evidence is fucking retarded. No, it was really good until it all exploded. Thank you for your narrative. You fucking asshole.
I'll give you a 12-second rant. Under the presidency of Calvin Coolidge, there were multiple market failures, and there were multiple times that the stock market went through a crash. But because he didn't institute a bunch of Keynesian bullshit and try and fix it, we didn't have a Great Depression then.
15.
Great.
Let's go to Corey.
Well, I added 3 seconds for pause, mostly because you were counting. That's why I said I paused and then I said we didn't have a Great Depression.
Well, I'm just rehashing the same thing. Gibbs did the typical analysis of you take this thing in a vacuum, okay, it's successful, and then ignore the rest of history. I actually see this, not the one-to-one comparison per se, but I see this with clients that I coach with a weight loss. I lost 10 pounds in the past, and then I regained it all back, and therefore it was successful in the past. It's not how the time is a variable. And if you want to ignore all the other stuff that occurs, everything is successful.
That's what Connor did with Western Europe. You think Western Europe is successful because of just welfare policies?
I took a 30.
Yeah, do you think it was successful Keynesian investment in the fucking
No, I think
industrialization.
No. I think Western Europe.
Money in order.
I'll tell you how Western Europe got the fucking money. It has to do with a very long period of time. Yes, where Europe and the Western world generally dominated the fucking world. You don't think that was relevant to the development of Western society and building up Europe?
Of course it was. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
So then why are we attributing Western Europe's success to their bumfuck, socialist policies, as opposed to all the shit that allows them to afford it?
War, statist investment post-war.
Yeah, that's what that's and that's what put Europe on the map.
Billions of dollars that subsidize European development.
You're sure, yes, because that's what put Europe on the map, right? Because before this, these massive empires that controlled half the fucking planet, that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, no shit. And what happened to those fucking empires during the early 20th century, Lactoid?
Yes, they fought each other. They had a bunch of big fucking wars, but regardless, there was still the social. There was still the
annihilating the
Connor.
fucking continent. It was the free market that developed everything. I got it.
No, I'm not necessarily saying it was the free market. Arguably, it was mercantilism and the development of Western Europe as a global dominant hegemon that led them to be in such a position right now. Okay, but what I'm saying is, yeah, I understand that there was specific instances in which the U.S. gave money, but Europe would have come back even without a dollar from the United States, and they would have again become very close to where they were today. And that's not because of any particular economic policy that you and I are going to think of now. It's not because of some fucking laissez-faire free market shit that I would want. It's not because of some welfare policy that you would want. It has to do because of the unique history of Europe.
Okay. So this is great.
We saw gambling.
Okay. But anyway, thanks all. This is a lot of fun. I mean, in the way that debates are. We are going. I'm gonna end this portion. Corey, thank you for being here, friend. You are fantastic. We loved you. You're our #1 Canadian. We need to say that every time, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're glad you're here.
So yeah, you sorry, I didn't know that we were outros. Yeah. But yeah,
I wasn't
echo
just saying that. Yeah, just like out of the.
I appreciate that, and I'm grateful. And regardless, I'm always grateful to be invited here. You're under, as much as I super appreciate and am grateful for our friendship, you're under no obligation towards me, and I always view being here as a privilege. But yeah, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube. It's Corey Campbell. This has always been great. And Lactoid, Gibbs, Ali, Counterpoints, and Scott. Always a pleasure. Love you, Prime.
Love you too, friend. Scott. Thanks as always for coming through. I think it was great. We had some points of not the opposite contention. Sorry, my brain's not working now. Agreement. So that was nice.
We both want Bush in jail. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
I am an anarcho-capitalist. Fabian Liberty. You can find me pretty much everywhere. I mean, you can follow me on Twitch. I don't stream on Twitch anymore because the censorship is just currently in favor of YouTube is slightly better than Twitch at the moment. If that switches, I don't know. I might come back to Twitch so you can follow me there too. But Fabian Liberty pretty much everywhere.
All right. Thanks so much.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Counterpoints. The one I missed and I love so much. I wish we could have you on here more, but I know family and work and all that stuff gets in the way. But thanks so much, friend.
My pleasure. Love being here. Sorry if I'm a little bit grumpier than usual, but work, family, side projects, side hustles, all that bullshit is driving me slowly fucking insane. Not to mention Twitter, political debates, and all that bullshit. So basically, I just want to reemphasize I am in a point of vacillation right now where I'm so frustrated with electoral politics. When I wake up in the morning, I want to join like Nick Fuentes and like start the Christian authoritarian revival nationalist revolution that's going to institute all you fucking douchebags not being able to do online gambling anymore. And then by 5 p.m., I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to go live in the woods by myself and you guys can kill each other. So that's where I'm at right now mentally and politically. But if you're interested in science fiction violence, then I do have a semi-popular Warhammer 40K channel. If you enjoy breakdowns of science fiction violence, go follow that because we have fun. Thank you for having me.
Channel's blowing up. Go to Counterpoints. Well, Counterpoints is the name in YouTube, right?
So Counterpoints 40K is where I do the science fiction breakdowns. That's the most popular channel. We just broke 75K subs. I'm hoping to break 100K by the end of the year. So pretty happy with that. And we jump between 500,000 and 1 million views every month, which is super duper. We just need some new content to do because Games Workshop is being fucking lazy. When it comes to debates, I typically post these to a second channel that's linked down in the description called Counterfire. I also co-host a show with Brianna Wu over there where we just kind of take center right versus progressive positions on shit. And then finally, I do post essays to a third channel that's also linked in the description. So if you're into a variety of content, I have something for you.
Thanks so much, friend.
Do you play Soulstorm, Connor? Just wanted to ask.
I don't. I would actually have to Google it in order to see what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay.
Let's
It's Warhammer.
Ooh.
Let's go to Ali. Thank you so much, friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Sorry it was so quiet. I was just here for eye candy today. I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, so I've just been a bit tired. But thank you for having me, man. Sociologic on Twitter for just now.
All right, thanks so much. Gibbs, thank you for coming through. I'm glad we got to hear your perspective on this. I think your perspective is useful, because I don't think people think it's real. But you learn, like, yeah, the people who have that point of view, and I think it's useful that we know that. So thanks so much, friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be here. It's always fun. I always enjoy coming on Mondays and, talking shenanigans and, trying to hold y'all to being accountable and whatnot. It's always good times. Yeah, if y'all like hearing what I have to say, Admiral Gibbs and everything. I don't know if I can tell you how to make money, but I can tell you how to find toxic women. So if you like that, that's what that's what I do.
Well, take your money.
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt. I'll tell you that. But you know what's really nice? If you're really good, the toxic women will pay for you. That's the real secret.
Wow.
Cheeseburgers, cocaine, and toxic women. You're not going to last another 5 years.
I'm not trying to live too. Listen, the way this is going, we're going to have the God Emperor thing, and it's going to be Biden. They're going to be turning him into a servitor and fucking making us and telling us it's good that people around him are running shit.
Okay. Well,
I appreciate you, Admiral Gibbs. I just want to say that I appreciate you because you and me share one thing in common, I think, which is that we are willing to bite any bullet.
Yeah, I mean, and what it's really
like if people are like, well, what about this? Like Admiral will just be like, yes, fucking kill him.
I mean, what's really crazy?
Like, all right, fuck.
I think what's really interesting to me is what's this development in Twitch poll. Like, at least since I've been here, is there were people no offense to Connor here, that people think are conservative or right leaning, and then I would in real life I would consider me a center righty.
There's
right,
there's
so
so
whenever you compare Connor to me, and we're both calling ourselves center right, it's a very drastic difference. Because I'm not a religious conservative.
You'd be
at
libertarian if ANCAPs weren't crazy.
Well, I like something. I like taking people's other countries' shit though. So I guess not libertarian.
What?
Or as we stated, principled.
Oh, well, maybe.
Black to it. Thank you so much for coming through. You're fantastic. We love you. You may not be the best Canadian, but you're a great friend, and we appreciate your legal input earlier. Oh, that was very, very helpful.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that technically Gibbs could have the principle of "fuck you, I want to get what's mine," and this would be a principled take as long as he stuck to it, which I think he does pretty consistently. I think he holds that principle strongly, and I give him credit for that. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I really just want to end with, we didn't get to talk about the debate too much, but the only thing that I want people to take from that debate, honestly, is when you watch it, everyone is freaking out about Biden's performance. I want you to focus less on Biden's performance and focus more, go back even to a couple days ago and watch what the pundits were telling you about Biden's acuity, and look at what all the politicians were telling you about how sharp he was, and how with it he was, and how he hasn't missed a step, and then realize that all of them were looking you right in the eye and fucking lying to you. They were all lying to you. They're all liars, and you can't trust them. And I think that's the one lesson we need to take from this.
Thank you so much.
I'm a Biden face first half of the debate.
Gibbs, are you streaming?
It's a spot on.
Yeah,
Gibbs is always streaming, yeah.
Yeah, let's send people to Gibbs. For more fun. To like the toxic women. I like to. No, I wouldn't. Thank you. I've had enough of that. But I'm sure you can learn a lot over there. Have fun with our friend Gibbs. We really appreciate it. Off you go. Thanks everyone. This was great. Account of Points. Hopefully we can have you again soon-ish. Look, I was amazed that we could
Thanks for the
actually
raid.
get you. Yeah, no problem, friend. I was amazed that we could actually get you on today because we like never been able to haven't been able to do it in a few months, right? We got you on with Scott, and there was a pattern where like every time you would show up, Scott wouldn't be around. And I wanted to give you a guys a chance to like be in the same room.
Reconnect. Yeah. No, I'll try to make it monthly. Obviously, literally, I'm not trying to bore you guys with details, but I have 2 children. One just turned 1.
I'll send one back.
I have the YouTube channel that I'm trying to nurture into getting past 100K by the end of the year. I'm still trying to do at least one weekly political show with Brianna or without Brianna. And then I still have full-time employment. So basically, I'm working like 2.5 jobs, and I love my outside life a lot more than my wage cage life, but the money just isn't right to go full-time creating. So if I was a single man in my early 20s, I could make it work. But I'm a man with responsibilities, and my family's financial and emotional health comes before my narcissistic desire to stream constantly and talk about science fiction. So, unfortunately.
Have you started like a Patreon or whatnot? Or I don't share if you're not comfortable, but
No, yeah, I have a patreon.com/counterpoints, but I don't really post to it. To be honest, the majority of my revenue is, ad based. And then that's also the problem is there's so many other things that I know that I should be doing, like Patreon or TikTok or clips or a merch store or something like that.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, OnlyFans. But when you're busy like producing content and that's really all you have time for, a lot of that back end work that you need to set up in order to be a professional streamer or a professional YouTuber, all of that work just takes a back seat, and it's months or years before you address it. It's frustrating, but it's the nature of the beast. I do. I have an editor, and we do revenue share, but he's talented in a lot of those aspects, but it's also a question of like you need to strike when the iron is hot, like at the moment that things make sense. So I don't want to release dog shit merchandise on a back ass website that makes me $8 over the course of a year. That doesn't sound like a good time either.
But you must be, obviously I don't know your metrics, but it sounds like you have this pretty large exponential growth. Like I assume on the trajectory, like you should be pretty soon to go your own way, or I don't know. Like I don't know if you maybe mapped it out of like you have a timeline.
It's gonna be a year and a half. I'll tell you why. So I'll just share it. So if I'm making if I get 500,000 to 1 million views on the YouTube channel or whatever, that is between $1,500 and $4,000 a month. So that's enough. It's good money, right? Like it pays bills. It does what it's supposed to do. But my monthly bills are $4,000 to $5,000 a month, and I have 2 kids. So I can't have a $4,000 month and barely squeak by, and then have a $1,500 month and then be like, baby, I'm sorry, the mortgage isn't getting paid this month. That's not a thing.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
Yeah.
Take care, Ollie. Be well. It was a pleasure.
Counterpoints, before you leave, can I talk to you?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I'll move you to the private room, but I'll leave here. See you guys. Thanks for.
Okay.
Take care, Prime.
So I have discovered today, not today, it was a couple days ago, that new